Okay, good morning, everybody. I call the April 23rd, 2024 meeting of the County Board to order. I invite everyone to stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Galassi, will you please lead the pledge? And I'll ask everyone to remain standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today it gives me a pleasure to ask Member Sam Tonatore to lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please join me in a moment of reflection. Let us pray silently together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. Let us offer thanks for our colleagues, our neighbors, friends, and families. Let us be a source of hope for those who need. Let us be grateful for our many gifts, including the opportunity to serve. Let us listen with open minds and hearts. Let our speech and our actions be guided by kindness, respect, and fairness. And let us take this opportunity to make our community a better place that welcomes and provides for all. Amen.
Thank you, Member Tonatore. And Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the roll.
Cahill. Here. Chaplin.
Here.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
Here.
Desart. Here. Eckhoff. Here. Evans.
Here.
Galassi.
Here.
Garcia. Here. Guston. Here. Krajewski. LaPlante. Here. Ozog. Here. Rutledge. Here. Schwarzy. Here. Tornatore. Here. You.
Here.
And Zay.
Okay, well, I guess everybody's probably wondering why we have these beautiful dogs here today. I'm trying to coerce them to stay with me all day. I'd like to invite Susan Johansson and her dog Misty, Kathy London and her dog Maisie, along with member Brian Kajewski to the podium. Yeah, please. Okay. Today, we welcome our friends from Pet Partners to help us recognize National Therapy Animal Day. These trained teams bring social and emotional comfort to people in hospitals, treatment centers, and helping those in need, providing their own brand of healing therapy. With our proclamation this morning, we recognize all the therapy animals who partner with their human handlers to give back to their communities. I'll read the proclamation and then ask our guests to share some thoughts. Whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in DuPage County play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams make millions of visits per year in settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, schools, and hospice, whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literacy challenges, and those approaching end of life. And whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deborah A. Conroy, Chair of the DuPage County Board, and members of the County Board do hereby recognize April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day and encourage our residents to celebrate the many contributions of therapy animals and their human handlers who offer healing, a sense of security, and joy to thousands of people in our region. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor? Okay, approve this day, this 23rd day of April 2024 in Wheaton, Illinois. Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for that great proclamation, and thank you to the board and Chairwoman for all the support you give us for our animal services. But most of all, thank you for all the therapy work you do in DuPage County. And over the last few years, this has really grown where we have a number of people who are helping throughout DuPage with therapy animals at all the different facilities that we have here. So again, I want to thank you for all the work that you guys do and all of the other therapy handlers and most importantly, the therapy dogs that we have. So I don't know if you guys want to say a little word, maybe where you guys go or what you do, or if anybody wants to get. What about you guys? You guys want to say anything? And I'm not prepared either. I should have some dog business with me. Oh, yeah. I think the chair. Yeah. But again, thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Hi, I'll just say thank you very much on behalf of Susan and myself and our dogs and all of the animal therapy teams in the area for the proclamation. It's very rewarding work, and we really appreciate your noticing it. And we just do it. Happy to promote the animal-human bond, which is very strong. And we go to a lot of places, all kinds of different places, and every time I go, I come home happier than when I left because people are so thankful and so happy. It's amazing the difference it makes. So it's a great way to spend time with my dog. So thank you very much.
I'll just be really brief. I want to thank this board for all the support you've also given to DuPage County Animal Services. I'm a volunteer dog trainer there, and you all have been just stupendous with your support of Animal Services, and I just want to take this time to also thank you for that. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, meeting's over. Does anybody want to come up and get a picture?
Pulling him away from your side.
I think she senses it. I guess she senses it.
That's okay, Sadie, don't worry about it.
We want your better side.
Did somebody whistle over there? Get the dog's attention.
There we go. But he's still moving. I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
Say meow.
Oh, I know, something. Okay, I guess we have to continue with the meeting. Giving DuPage Days proclamation, and I'd like to invite Brian Sloan to the podium. Each year at this time, we acknowledge the importance of DuPage area nonprofit organizations and the thousands of people who give their time and treasure to support these vital missions in our community. Giving DuPage provides connection between volunteers and donors with local groups that are seeking assistance. This year, May 1st through May 3rd, Giving DuPage is hosting a virtual community fundraiser, encouraging those who can to support dozens of local charities. Giving DuPage Board Chair Brian Sloan is here to accept the proclamation. Whereas DuPage County, through its strategic plan, has made a commitment to ensuring children and families can access services and programs that lead to independent and healthy lives. Whereas Giving DuPage was founded in 2001 by two philanthropists at the Community Resource on Volunteerism and Giving and is available to all county residents. And whereas Giving DuPage inspires and informs businesses, civic groups, and individuals, helping to connect those seeking to volunteer or make donations with charities. Whereas Giving DuPage was created in 2020 as a multi-day online community fundraiser that provides DuPage County nonprofits the opportunity to raise funds for their causes. And whereas Giving DuPage has connected 9,500 donors and more than 100 nonprofits, raising a total of $1.3 million. And whereas DuPage County seeks to raise awareness of Giving DuPage and the 5th Annual Giving DuPage Days and ensuring the valuable effort continues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deborah A. Conroy, Chair of the DuPage County Board, and members of the County Board do hereby proclaim May 1st to May 3rd, 2024 as Giving DuPage Days in DuPage County, and encourage everyone to support local nonprofits through their annual fundraiser. Motion? Second? All in favor? Okay.
I think Chair Conroy did a really good job of explaining what we do. So thank you to Chair Conroy, and thank you to the rest of the board for your support. If you wouldn't mind grabbing a pen and paper, if you don't already have one, she told you what we do. I'm going to tell you how to donate. If you would just write down givingdupageday.org. And if you go to that next Wednesday through Friday, you'll see we've got about 70 local not-for-profits signed up. Our goal this year is to raise over $350,000 for them, and you can go on there and donate, or if you want to be ambitious, you can sign up to be a fundraiser for one of your favorite charities. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. Is it too late if somebody wanted to be added to the list of charities that you're raising for?
The deadline has passed. Give me 1 second. Kyle?
Technically, no, we can get them in.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
He's our kind of our IT guy who handles all that stuff. Any other questions? Okay, thanks again, folks. Appreciate it.
Okay, on the matter of public comment. According to our county board rules, members of the public shall be afforded time to address the board. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes each. Our first speaker is
Carol Gentile.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Hi, my name's Carol. I'm from Glendale Heights regarding a situation that occurred to me and a neighbor at the animal shelter about a cat named Rocky/Black Sox. One day late in 2021, this friendly, affectionate, lovable, playful, hungry little cat appeared at both of our homes out of nowhere. We both fed him, played with him, and loved him so very much, but at the same time, not knowing if he belonged to anyone. After a few years, we both thought the cat doesn't belong to anyone. With winter fast approaching, the week of the snow and frigid cold, we were worried and concerned about Rocky/Black Sox. He appeared at my door on January 11th, wanting to come in. My dog started barking and left, and all I could do was pray for his safety. On January 15th, in the cold and snow, he went to the neighbor's house. He was injured and needed medical assistance. The neighbor was told, take him to the shelter. They will help the cat, and you could adopt him and give him the loving home that he deserves. As the weather broke, I began looking for our buddy. My first call was to the shelter. I described Rocky in detail. No, we don't have a cat like that. They never looked into the system or asked me to call back. Later, I find out that they had Rocky the whole entire time, and I was lied to. I called continuously. Every shelter, vet, police department, posting online, every website, posting flyers, knocking on neighbors' doors, etc. for 2 months, never giving up hope. Finally, on April 3rd, my prayers were answered. Rocky's picture with a paragraph describing him to the T was at the shelter's website up for adoption. Prior to the adoption, he was never posted. I clicked the link to get the info early that morning. I received a text that he had been adopted. I was so sad. I verified that it was a cat by asking if the cat's from Glendale Heights on Stevenson and President. I was once again told, yes, he was adopted days ago. I asked politely, can you forward my name and number to whom adopted him? I was told by the shelter's employee that that was illegal to do. I wasn't asking that I wanted him back. I was only asking that I wanted to know how he was doing because I loved him so much. I went on social media thanking the person who brought Rocky into the shelter and the adopters. I received a text asking if we could talk about the cat. I learned that they were the neighbors that were also caring for him who brought him into the shelter. His intentions were clearly stated to adopt the cat. The employee stated, the cat's in a lot of pain and is suffering. It would most likely need to be put down. The neighbor wanted to be informed and to be present if that was the case, but never was informed. When an animal is brought into the shelter, employees should explain the specific guidelines regarding surrendering, care, and adopting process. The neighbor was never considered for adoption and was lied to until the cat had been put down. So sad, so unfair, and not right. The neighbor was in tears, angry, and so hurt. But in reality, the cat's eye was removed, his health issues are resolved, and put up for adoption, while 2 other loving and caring families would
Ms.
have...
Gentile, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. Could I just finish the conclusion? Please? Thank you. The employees at the end, okay. In conclusion, while this may have been an unfortunate experience, we would appreciate a written apology from the shelter that further experience be one of a more positive and happier experience, that they were wrong by what they did. Lastly, I, Carol, would love my info to be forwarded to the adopters, asking to be staying in touch on how my buddy's doing periodically. I miss him tremendously and love him so much. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Greatly appreciated, Carol. And this is a picture of Rocky / Black Sox. I miss him.
Karen Rugg.
Everybody see this symbol? Big blue symbol on all your documents? Everybody see that? Everybody see that symbol right there in front of you? What is it, a dais? Right there, that blue symbol? Everybody see that big blue symbol behind Conroy's, Chairman Conroy? What is that symbol? Looks like wheat. It looks like agriculture. Looks like farmer. Now we have Miss Lynn LaPlante. I don't know your name, the third person, the blonde. She's a concert violinist with Chicago Symphony. She did Little Mermaid, her own little theater, was a very terrific success, Little Mermaid. Sheila's great for doing photographs, new theater arts building in the fairgrounds. I listened to that. I didn't see one person from the agricultural community at that meeting. Deb Conroy was right there. She didn't enter today, so I saw there's a Jim McGuire that's ahead, and it had a picture of this big group of people from agriculture that redid buildings there. And you want to destroy it all and make it your own personal, self-awarding for all of your little self-fulfilling things you want to do for you. You just spent $45,000 for a New York man to come to DuPage, $45,000, that was the first check, I guess, to do a survey that DuPage has a lot of money. You've got a lot of money in DuPage. They don't have a lot of money for people like the man a couple weeks ago that didn't have enough money to pay his taxes. I see people coming in here all the time. Your taxes are through the roof. Not everybody has a lot of money. You might have a lot of money. And it's easy for you to give away our tax dollars on surveys. I say no to your arts, theater arts. Then you're all soccer moms. You're all sitting there whining and complaining that you have beautiful, healthy children that you can cart around to take them to all their soccer tournaments. Poor, poor ladies. I wasn't a soccer mom, I was a band mom. I never complained, I was grateful. And I had a lot of fun going to all those places. But you want your own sports thing, whatever you call them. It's too much for you to put gas in your SUVs that you drive. Spoiled. You're spoiled rotten on our dollar. Who are you? You're supposed to care about the people of this
Ms. Ruck,
county.
your 3 minutes is up.
Study this when you get home. It's on all your documents. Look at that before you leave. Say, why are we here? Who built this community? 24/7 back-breaking work in the fields with animals day in, day out. And you want to cut them off. This is just the first step. What's the next step?
Okay, moving on. If the board has received public comment via our online portal per board policy, those comments were provided to members yesterday so they can be reviewed. Comments submitted electronically will be included in the minutes for this meeting. Okay. Now we move on to the presentation of the 2024 Sustainability Report. And I'd like to invite Member Garcia and Nick Kottmeyer to the podium. This morning, Public Works Chair Paula Deacon Garcia will kick off a presentation that originated in her committee regarding the progress our departments have made to reduce fuel consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and to demonstrate DuPage County's commitment to environmental sustainability. Following the presentation, I'll ask Committee Chair Jim Zay, Mary Ozog, and Sheila Rutledge to join Paula and Nick at the podium to add any remarks they may have as well. Paula, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. Good morning, everyone. Several months ago, I asked staff to provide an update on sustainability projects under the jurisdiction of the Public Works Committee. Once we started to look at the list and how expansive it was, we decided to gather as many projects as we could to update the county's environmental progress report. This document reflects the largest reduction in climate and environmental impact since the county started measuring our success in 2005. Nick is going to give you some of the highlights, and I think you will be as impressed as I was. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much. So everybody should have in front of you the report. So this is something that about every 10 years, every decade, we do put this together. It's kind of like our snapshot of what we have done for the last 10 years. And I can tell you that as we started putting this together, we were even impressed by what this board, previous boards have accomplished. I'm going to give you just a couple highlights real briefly through here, but the one thing I want to focus on, every single department, every single elected official, this has kind of become a cultural thing on all of our projects. It's really neat to see, and staff gets involved in a specific project we don't even realize, but the wider approach here, every project, this is kind of the new culture of how we look at it, and it's a great thing to see. So I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview, but I'd recommend take a look at the projects. There's a lot of very, very impressive projects that have been completed by this county over the past decade. Next slide. So we're going to break it down into 4 main areas for this, and you're going to see the first one we're going to talk about is energy. I'm not going to go into specific ones, but with that, when we're not spending money on energy or utilities, we're saving that money. And what we've come up with, and this is just the projects over the past 10 years, $900,000 in annual savings. And that doesn't even, what we did the previous 10 years were the easy ones. That was the lighting retrofits, that was everything else. That, in addition to this, I mean, the amount that we save annually on energy is absolutely tremendous. And every project we do, like tunnel retrofits, you see that type of energy savings in everything we do. And with that comes almost 12.5 million pounds of carbon dioxide we're reducing annually for what we're doing. And you can see the type of projects we're doing. We just went through for the big solar array here on 421. Once again, you've got transportation with their LED conversion. You've got the LED lighting retrofits. We do occupancy sensors. It goes on and on. So you can see that as we do that, just the solar project we added on this building equals over 20 homes a year that in electricity that we're saving. So there's everything we're doing has an additive benefit. Next slide. Next part is waste. What we have done here, as long with our partners like Scarce, we've diverted nearly 3 million pounds of waste diverted from landfills for our projects that we've done. Nearly 2 million pounds of carbon dioxide reduced annually. Some of the programs that fall under this category are electronics recycling. Everybody's well aware of that, what we do there. Our in-house battery recycling. Transition to digital documents. So a good example of that, one of our recent projects was building and zoning. They converted to online permitting along with stormwater. So those two departments did primarily stormwater. So normally they get about 14,000 permit applications a year. So just by what we did with going to digital, the greenhouse gas savings from those efforts have saved more than 86,000 pounds of greenhouse gases every year just by that effort. So you can see every project we're doing is adding up. You all know what Kay and Scarce has done with the Pumpkin Smash event. The food waste that's donated animal services to feed some of the animals. All of it, like I said, is becoming a cultural thing. Next slide. Water. As I said before, every department here has been highly involved. This is a great one. Stormwater has done a lot of innovative things in the water. So water, wastewater, public works, and stormwater. You know, some great projects the last 10 years. You got the back to receiving station in public works, the low chloride de-icing program transportation. Stormwater, they've done the countywide national pollutant prevention elimination system program that they do, first in its nation. A really good example of what we've done. So we've saved over $6 million in total savings in water with 60 million gallons of water saved. One of our best projects we've done is stormwater, what they've done in efficiencies, rain barrels that they've sold out there, everything. And once again, those are the type of programs that just go on year after year. So the benefits keep accumulating. You can see the solar water fixtures we do. Back to receiving station, another one we did in public works probably 8 years ago, first in the nation. Other communities are bringing their Vector waste to us, and we're treating it in an environmentally friendly way. As I said before, the road salt alternatives. So all of the departments have been involved. Next slide. Environmental. This is one of those that we're extremely proud of because this has made a big difference here on campus. But once again, it's not just campus we've done, but we will focus on that. So as you know, what we've done here on campus, we've restored and replanted over 25 acres here on campus. We've achieved a level 1 arboretum status, which is not an easy achievement. Over 1,000 trees we've planted here. We've extended, as you know, the Arbor Day. Every year we extend our saplings that are planted out there. So what we're doing here on campus is going way out. I do think that a number of the board members just did a tree planting along the trail system. That was, DOT. Like I said, it's being ingrained in everything we're doing. If you haven't seen some of the natural areas we planted on the other side of County Farm, definitely worth looking at. So those improvements alone, nearly 1.5 million pounds of carbon dioxide are reduced annually. So you can see on all of these, there's a benefit, like I said, not just here on campus, but we're extending the programs out to the public as well. Next slide. Although we definitely don't do it for the recognition, everybody has recognized the programs we've done. We've become a leader in this, and that's why it is a pleasure to present the 2024 Environmental Progress Report to the board for what we've achieved the last decade. Obviously, this is just some of the achievements and awards that we've received over the years, and it's truly been a team effort. And probably I'd like to have, we mentioned before, Member Zay, Member Ozog, Member Rutledge, if you guys want to come up here as part of this and say any words, because all three of your departments that you oversee has been instrumental, and every department has, but specifically your three have done a tremendous amount. So I know you were gonna give some closing comments, but I don't know if anybody wanted to say anything? It's up to you.
Oh, why not?
Well, thank you, Nick. You know, obviously I've been here a while, and when I started, the environment really wasn't a big issue. Once in a while, we would try something. And to see the transformation over the last 20 years that the county's gone through, it's just not an idea that we throw out. It's in every project we do, everything we talk about. Obviously, stormwater, I can't thank our staff enough. They keep bringing new things, engineering changes. We're running out of space around the campus. We find bioswales, we do other things. We try to make sure that the runoff that we have, that goes into streams and rivers around the complex, that it's treated before we go. We've got pavers. We do a lot of stuff, so people don't realize it, but every little bit matters here in the county. And again, our staff does a great job of bringing all these options to us. And again, without our staff and what we're doing, I think we're making a difference here in DuPage County.
Thank you, Jim. I also agree that we got to do the little things because all those little things add up to this kind of success. So I hope I speak for the entire board when I say I'm impressed with what we've accomplished together. When I first came to this board, I never thought I would be celebrating booster pump replacements, a Vector receiving station, and building retro commissioning, but it's impressive to see the impacts these projects have had on reducing our county footprint. What I find most compelling is the expanse of successes spanning across the many departments in the county. It takes all of us. I'm proud to be on a board that has taken its conservation of resources seriously, and I look forward to seeing what's in store for the next 10 years. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Next time you're stopped at a traffic signal, be sure to look at what we've been able to do. 10 million pounds of greenhouse gas emissions yearly between just the Department of Transportation. That's fantastic. And we also, the trails, Member Schwarzy and Member Rutledge were there along with me on Friday planting heritage oaks. Our trail system is fantastic and is used by so many people, especially since the pandemic. But we need to continue, but every single bit counts, and these are a lot of changes that you don't necessarily pay attention to until you hear about it. So thank you so much for this recognition, and we're going to keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for all of this. It's amazing what happens when we all work so well together. Member Galassi, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just had a quick question. Nick or Sheila or whoever can answer this. The gas, greenhouse gas emission savings is about 1.5 million pounds per year. Just curious what the percentage, like, in my mind, I don't know what that means. So like what percentage of that, is that a 5% savings or?
I can, so the 1.5 million, so that's primarily because of the trees, what we planted here on campus. There is storage ability in those trees. We can get you what, a benchmark what we have, so I'm happy to do that. So we can grab those numbers.
That'd be great.
We
Just
work
curious.
we work with both ComEd and NICOR to get some baseline commissioning data, and so we can definitely share some of that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Guston.
Thank you very much. This is great, great information, and the county's just doing wonderful things. I'm assuming that the calculation includes different locations throughout the county that are recycling, like Naperville has their whole recycle area there. Is that included in your numbers or not? Because we might even be doing better.
Oh, no, this is just the programs and the projects under your jurisdiction.
Perfect.
What you vote on, what you fund, this is, like I said, you do a lot of education as well, where you might convince another community to do a collection event. This doesn't include, events that they run. So your programs have blossomed into many, many other programs.
This is great. I mean, it's such a great way to lead forward, and then other communities doing what we're doing, or, assisting in what we're doing. So I love it. I did get a call from a resident locally, though, recently about recycling electronics, and they wanted more time for people to be able to go to the sites to be able to drop their stuff off. They didn't, some, I guess, from 9 to 3 or something, and most people are working. So maybe a conversation offline on timing of when people can drop stuff off.
And we could-
But still, this is just such phenomenal news, and you guys all did a great job. Of course, you always do a great job, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to the presentation of the Pretrial Fairness Act 6-month update. Today we have several presenters who will provide a 6-month update on the implementation of the Pretrial Fairness Act, also known as the Safety Act. I thank Chief Judge Bonnie Wheaton, Judge Joshua Deedon, Circuit Court Clerk Candace Adams, State's Attorney Robert Berlin, Public Defender Jeff York, and Director Bob McGillen for joining us today. I'd also like to thank Judicial and Public Safety Committee Chair Lucy Evans for working with the JPS stakeholders to put this information together. With that, I will turn it over to the presenters, and Jason Blumenthal will kick it off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next slide, Craig. Just to give some brief background, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but as we know, 2 public acts passed about June and February of 2021, fundamentally changing how bail was done here in the state of Illinois. Commonly referred to as the Safety Act, but one subsection of the Safety Act is the Pretrial Fairness Act. That's what we'll be discussing today, and that's what was implemented in September of last year after the Supreme Court made a ruling in regards to it. I'm not going to steal the thunder of all of our presenters, but that's how we got to today. And again, thank you, Chair Evans, for putting all this together. Chair of Judicial and Public Safety, Evans, for getting this together. A lot of good things, though, that the county has been doing, and I know Chief Judge Wheaton will talk about that, what we're doing statewide, and how we are the gold standard and continue to be. So with that, though, I'm going to turn it over to Circuit Court Clerk Candace Adams to talk about the wonderful new application her office has created about the Safety Act, or pretrial.
All right, so a little bit about data. The law did create some mechanism to collect data, some directive that we should be collecting data. It did not say who should be collecting the data, and it did not say how that data collection would be funded, but it did say that we should be collecting data. So in addition, it's statutorily created. I also sit on the Pretrial Data Oversight Board. I'm appointed by the Supreme Court to be on that board. There's a lot that's happening with data. You won't see it all now, but it is coming. We work very hard on it. So what we're about to show you is the website or the dashboard that our office produced. We're one of 3 counties in the state to have this dashboard. There's a lot more data that is interesting and that's collectible, correct? But we're not adding into it right now because it takes time, it takes money that we don't have, and we're just right now in the gathering of ideas as to what other information should be put on this dashboard, knowing that more data is coming in a very different format through the Supreme Court. Okay, so here's the pretrial data dashboard. And it's got a couple of different tabs. If you look at the top, can you scroll to the top of that page? Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can look at the data. So it's going to tell you on the first one, the arresting agency. There's a date where you can pull it from. You can either put the date in manually, or you can use a little slide below it to figure out what data you are looking for. This talks about how many arrests there were during that time period. Your second tab is going to tell you the charges, and this is going to be the most serious charge per offense. You will see that domestic battery is the charge that most people get arrested for. Now remember, there's a couple things about this. This is for data of people that are coming to first appearance court. If you're cited and released, you're not going to be in this data. Okay. If you go to the class of violations, this is going to tell you what all the arrests are for. Remembering again that Class Bs, Class Cs, traffic violations, those aren't coming to first appearance court, right? So you're not going to really see a lot of those on here. Class M is your class murder felonies. Class X are most serious, and then going from there. So you will see that most of our arrests substantially are Class A misdemeanors. Okay, next tab is your petitions to detain data. Okay, so there are, in this time frame, right now it's on
October 11th, but this went into effect September 18th of 2023. But from the time frame that's selected right now, there were 1,891 arrests. Of those arrests, 704 petitions to detain were filed, 1,187 were not. That doesn't necessarily mean the 1,187 all were eligible for petitions to detain, right? There has to be something in the law that allows them to file, the state attorney's office, to file a petition to detain. Most of those cases, there was no reason to file a petition to detain on. And then the final tab is petitions to detain outcomes. So of the 704 petitions to detain in that time frame, 303 were granted, 401 were not. So this is on the clerk's website, our website, 18judicial.org. You're welcome to go and look at it if anybody has any questions about it. Yeah.
That 401, is there a tab that shows how many didn't show up for their trial?
For their trial or for their next
Well,
hearing
that
date?
petition to detain, the 401 were denied, means they
Right.
were released?
They were released, right.
And then is there a tab that shows how many that didn't show up when they had to come back?
So you move to a different court, right? You move out of first appearance court into your house court, right, depending on when you are. We could potentially, that's another data set that we could potentially pull. We are collecting that in a different way for the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you. But it's not on the dashboard?
It's not on the dashboard.
Member Glassy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to add to Member Krajewski's comments that I think that number is incredibly important to determine, how this is affecting the public safety.
We are welcome to take any suggestions of things that you think you would like to have added. Please feel free to email me. We will add them if it's appropriate and when it's appropriate.
Oh, Member Garcia.
I just want to thank you. I think this is fantastic information. It's anybody who is wanting any information about their own city or what's going on, I think this is fantastic and it's so transparent. I want to thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. We didn't have to do this, and I will say it took a tremendous amount of effort from our IT team, who are phenomenal, the best in the state when it comes to clerk of the circuit court's office, to put this information up. It's the most user-friendly. It was a huge undertaking, and they just stepped up to the challenge. We are lucky to have it and them.
Okay, thank you for your leadership on this and being proactive and showing that DuPage County is going to show us exactly how to do it. So thank you, Candace.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next up is Chief Judge Wheaton.
I'm proud to report to you that once again, DuPage County is the gold standard in implementing a program mandated by the legislature. And this is reinforced to me every time I attend a meeting of the Conference of Chief Judges. These are chief judges from all around the state, and they all look to us for leadership in implementing the Pretrial Fairness Act. Thanks to the wisdom of you, the county board, the diligence of my predecessors, and the hard work of all of the stakeholders, the 18th Circuit was ready on September 18th, 2023 to conduct first appearance court. We have the physical facility, the personnel, and the training to provide hearings and adhere to both the letter and the spirit of the Pretrial Fairness Act. My colleagues will give you the details of the process and the outcomes, and I'll turn it over to the man who makes it happen every weekday, Judge Joshua Deaton, who is in charge.
Thank you, Judge Whedon. It's not just me. This is a team effort. The Safety Act, or what's otherwise called the Pretrial Fairness Act, has brought transformative change to our criminal justice system. It dramatically changed the statutory framework for pretrial release for criminal defendants in Illinois. Neither name is official, Safety Act or Pretrial Fairness Act. In fact, neither name appears in the Illinois compiled statutes or the public acts. They're simply called Public Acts 101-652 and 102-1104. The act comprehensively overhauled many aspects of the state's criminal justice system, and in particular, it dismantled and rebuilt Illinois' statutory framework for the pretrial release of criminal defendants with the abolition of monetary bail. And one thing to keep in mind about this act and these acts is they do not touch upon civil cases or civil writs or civil warrants that may issue for a rule to show cause, failure to pay child support perhaps in those scenarios. But this implementation has brought many challenges. However, as Chief Judge Whedon alluded to, like DuPage County has always done, we have embraced, adapted to, followed the law, and met and continue to meet those challenges on a daily basis. I'm not here to engage in advocacy for or against the Pretrial Fairness Act or the acts. It is not proper for judges to weigh in on these issues or give an opinion in this setting. But what I can tell you is from my perspective as the presiding judge of First Appearance Court, I'm happy to report to you that I am extremely pleased with the professionalism, the effort, the diligence, the dedication, and work of all the stakeholders. Those stakeholders are State Attorney Berlin and his office, Public Defender York, Clerk Adams and her office, Bob McEllen and the Probation Department, Sheriff Mendrick, and the Chief Judge's Administrative Office, which includes our court-appointed Spanish interpreters. This has been a massive undertaking, and it required the cooperation and coordination of all these stakeholders. There are certainly issues and new challenges that have arisen and will continue to arise, but we have all adapted to and resolved those challenges through collaboration and communication. So as you can see on the slide, these are just some of the things that we did once we found out about the statute. We didn't wait until the Supreme Court ruled. We didn't wait before then. We started in action promptly. We convened stakeholder committee meetings and listened to various perspectives from all those stakeholders. We convened subcommittee meetings with administration and stakeholders. We reviewed the Pretrial Fairness Act, both acts and the statutes, the amendments, and the supporting materials. We made local policy and operational decisions for each and every pretrial decision point, and we developed and changed documents, forms, and orders to accommodate the act. We also created a new court call, which we call First Appearance Court, which I have alluded to. We constructed a new courtroom with CourtSmart, Language Link, and Zoom capabilities. This new courtroom is in the jail. It is not in the main courthouse, and that is an easy way to facilitate getting the inmates in and out as soon as possible. We developed an implementation plan. Part of that plan is that First Appearance Court is held every day of the week. It's including weekends and holidays, including Christmas Day, I was there, including New Year's Day as well, to accommodate the mandate of the legislature. Our chief judges, both Chief Judges Popejoy and Wheaton, have attended numerous meetings across the state. They've drafted administrative orders. We've attended and presented at multiple seminars and to other government bodies, including this one. And we participated in a mock First Appearance Court before it was implemented. We brought in all the stakeholders, and we went through mock scenarios to make sure it functioned properly, and it did. I review case law daily, and Berlin's office does, as well as Public Defender York. This is constantly evolving. A lot of questions were left that the courts are going to have to answer. So we are constantly monitoring those changes in the law and the rulings of the appellate courts as well, so we can adapt and comply. We staffed First Appearance Court with Spanish interpreters on a daily basis, too. We have Spanish interpreters there not only on the weekdays, but also the weekends and the holidays. So just to give you a general idea of how this goes, all people that are charged with an offense are presumed to be released. That's from something as petty as speeding all the way up to first-degree murder and anything in between. In fact, some people charged with a criminal offense never make it to my courtroom because the law allows officers discretion to just cite a person and give them a court date for their charge. But for those that are brought to First Appearance Court, there are only two scenarios in which they enter that court and they can leave. The two options are to release them with conditions or detain them. And once we make that decision, we send them to their trial courtroom. They don't stay in my courtroom. So my job is kind of like the Harry Potter sorting hat. They come to me and we figure out if they're released or if they're detained, and then we send them to their appropriate courtroom for their criminal case to be litigated. But in the detention scenario, the legislature has specifically marked only certain types of offenses that are detainable. So if a person is charged with an offense that is non-detainable, they are going to be released. Sometimes there are disputes as to what those conditions of release are, so we will have a conditions hearing. But the end result is that they're going to be released. In regards to detention, as I indicated, there are only specific offenses that are detainable under the law. There are some offenses that are not detainable. But if they are detainable, I do not make that initial determination if they're going to be detained. That discretion rests in State's Attorney Berlin and his office to file a petition to detain. If they do not file a petition to detain, I cannot detain. I cannot make up my own mind and decide, you know what, I think this person should be detained. I cannot do that. It needs to be presented to me in a petition. If it is presented to me in a petition, we will have a hearing in which both sides will be heard, and I will make certain determinations. The first determination I need to make is whether the charge is an eligible offense for detention. Sometimes there's argument as to whether it's even a detainable offense or not. But if we do decide that it is a detainable offense, the state must then show that the proof is evident or the presumption great that the person charged has committed that offense. If they pass that threshold, I have to find one of two things. I either need to make a finding of dangerousness under the statute or that the person is a high risk of willful flight. Most often these petitions are alleging the dangerousness standard. So the court has to make one of those determinations. And in regards to dangerousness, I have to find that the person is a real and present threat to the safety of any person or persons or the community based upon the specific articulable facts of the case. So if I do decide that there is a danger, we're not done yet, because I then have to determine whether there is a condition or combination of conditions that can mitigate that danger that I just found or mitigate the risk of flight. And the statute gives several factors for me to consider when I make that determination. So there's some instances where I may find that someone is a danger, but I release them because I find that there are conditions of release that can mitigate that danger or their flight. And there are some situations where I find they're a danger and that I cannot mitigate that. So that is basically, it's a nutshell. It gets very intricate and complicated, but that is a nutshell of what we're doing on a daily basis. So on day one, I want to assure you that we were ready. We met the mandate of the legislature on September 18th of 2023. These hearings are more robust. They take more time, whether it's just a release or whether it is a detention hearing. As expected, the days are longer and they include weekends. However, the increase in the hiring that they have done has mitigated some of that length of the hearing that we would be facing had they not had those resources. We certainly have timing requirements under this statute as well. They are to be given a hearing immediately, and continuances are limited to either 24 or 48 hours if they are requested by the defendant or the state. And I can assure you that the continuances are rare, and we usually are able to resolve all cases that are presented to us each and every day, which is efficient. Again, all the stakeholders are working hard to resolve these issues quickly, fairly, and justly for people charged with crimes. It has become a fully functioning criminal court call. I want to assure you that First Appearance Court is meeting the mandate of the legislature. We have built a great boat here to navigate these uncharted waters, and we are doing that on a daily basis. I do my best to uphold and apply the law fairly and impartially on a daily basis. And it is an honor and privilege to serve the people of the state of Illinois and the citizens of DuPage County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to State's Attorney Berlin for further analysis. Actually, is there a question?
Okay, Member Zay.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'm not an attorney. I mean, when I looked at the dashboard that Clerk Adams put together, I was surprised by the domestic violence disturbance ones. 2 categories. I saw about 60% are denied for being detained. Do you then, I mean, it's case by case, we all know those are horrible situations, then do you have to put, or whatever judge it is, put like, hey, you can't go back to the house, you can't do this, you will put different restrictions on hearing each case individually at that point?
So if a defendant is released, and that could be a scenario where State's Attorney Berlin's office does not file a petition to detain on a domestic, or a situation where they have filed a petition to detain and I have denied it. I would say the great majority of those releases state that the defendant shall have no contact or communication of any kind with the alleged victim and will also be forbidden from entering or remaining at the victim's residence.
Okay, great, thank you.
Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you, and thank you for all you do. With those roughly 400 petition for detainment that got released, is it fair to say that those were denied because of your ability to mitigate those two issues that are allowed to be mitigated, so to speak?
That's a difficult question to answer. I don't keep statistics on what the basis is for my denial because I'm only focusing on that case, that defendant, those situations. In some instances, I've made a finding that there's no dangerousness. So if I don't find dangerousness, I don't even get to whether I can mitigate. My analysis stops and the defendant's released. So it's difficult to say why in those instances that a specific person might have been released pending trial.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yes.
Member Galassi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you said if you don't find dangerousness, they're released. What about risk of flight? If they're not dangerous, but they're a flight risk, are they released?
So there are certain limits on the offenses that the state can even argue for flight. So in your hypothetical, am I finding flight or not finding it?
You're not finding dangerousness, but you are finding a flight risk. Do you detain?
It depends, because then if I find that they're at risk of flight, I have to go to that final step to determine whether there is a condition or combination of conditions that can mitigate that flight.
Okay.
Sometimes I find that, sometimes I don't.
What would be an example, like an ankle bracelet or something? Like what?
Well, it's very fact specific. It's hard to say. You look at a variety of factors. Sometimes there is electronic home monitoring, which is a tool we have, or GPS. That's a consideration to make on whether the defendant will even comply with that, because sometimes, a defendant can easily cut off their GPS bracelet. It's not something that's locked on them completely. There has to be a level of compliance on their part.
Okay. And in addition, Member Zay asked about domestic violence. I noted that there were 18 who violated an order of protection that were not detained. Again, I know you don't have specifics on each 18 of those cases, but if I had an order of protection and somebody violated it, I mean, to get an order of protection, that means something is escalated to a very high level of threat. And if somebody's violating that and they're not being detained, that makes me nervous as a community member. Can you opine on that?
Not really, because I'm a judge. Policy, the wisdom of the legislature is not to be questioned by judges, and we don't make policy decisions. We don't wear red robes, we don't wear blue robes, we wear black robes. But again, there's a variety of factors that can come into play. It seems you believe that someone who violates an order of protection is a danger inherently, but the legislature does not. Because if someone were simply charged with violation of an order of protection, they would be detainable. But the legislature requires the state to go further. They have to prove not only that they committed the violation of order of protection, but that they're a danger. And then once the danger is there, can it be mitigated with something like GPS? So, I mean, that policy is best argued by the legislature and opinions being made by the electorate.
Okay, Member Cahill and then Member Yu.
Yes, quick question. Of the 400 non-detained, were any gun cases?
I don't know.
Okay, because I would think a gun case would be a detainable.
Are you talking about domestic where the defendant allegedly possessed a firearm, or are you just talking about firearm offenses in general?
I guess I'm talking about the 400 that were not detained on the dashboard. Like I would hope the gun cases raise to a different level of detainability because of having a firearm.
And many people may believe that, but once again, just like the violation of order of protection scenario, the legislature has not made it as simple as if you're possessing a gun with an extended magazine with a bullet in the chamber and you're at Topgolf. Some people may say that, you know what, you should be detained. But it's not that simple, because I have to then not only find that they committed that offense, but that they then committed or met the dangerousness standard. So in essence, the mere fact that you're charged with a particular crime, which some people might find is a very serious and dangerous crime, that alone is not enough under the statute. The state has to prove the dangerousness and all those factors that the legislature lists, and then, even if they get by there, they have to prove whether there is a condition or combination of conditions that cannot mitigate that.
Okay, member you and then member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you so much for your presentation, Your Honor. And also I just wanted to thank again Candace Adams for the Pretrial Fairness Act dashboard, which really displays this data really clearly. My question actually might be more applicable to State's Attorney Bob Berlin, because I want to go back to the domestic battery. So the charges were domestic battery, which causes bodily harm. There were 169 petitions that were filed, but there were 337 that were not filed. And then for domestic battery, make physical contact, there were 93 that were filed, but 205 that were not filed. And I'm just looking at, compared to armed robbery with a firearm, 11 petitions were filed, 0 were not filed, and so on and so forth. So I just want to go back to what is it that, with regard to domestic battery, why are those petitions to detain not filed at all? So it doesn't have to do with, obviously, your analysis, Judge. So yeah, that's really my question.
So I can't answer that. That's probably best for State's Attorney Berlin, but I know that they probably consider a variety of factors on whether they're going to detain or not, or file the petition to detain or not.
Okay, member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to just thank you all for this great presentation. I'm really learning a lot because thankfully I don't have an intimate relationship with the court system.
Nobody wants to.
My question is, so you need the State's Attorney's Office to allow pretrial release, but you don't necessarily need to follow through with pretrial release, even though the State's Attorney's Office granted it. Is that true?
I don't know if I'm really following your question.
So in order to allow pretrial release, you need to get an okay from the State's Attorney's Office.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
So they get a case. They look at the facts, they look at the defendant's history, they look at a variety of factors, and they have to make a determination of whether they can maybe file a petition to detain, or if they can file a petition to detain, do they want to file a petition to detain? They've got to make that determination first and foremost. I do not enter the equation into that. Once they make that determination, they may agree to release a defendant with conditions. They may want to file a petition to detain, and we have a hearing. And if I feel that they've met their burden, I will detain. If I feel they have not met their burden, I will release with what I believe are the appropriate conditions of release.
Your Honor, for 1 second, State's Attorney Berlin and Jeff York both have about their procedures, and if it's specific to questions like that when they come up, I think that might be the more appropriate time than for the judge.
All right, thanks, Jason. Let me just make sure I get one more question about this in, that even if the State's Attorney's Office files to detain, you can still decide not to detain. Is that true?
Correct, yeah, because we have that hearing where I make determinations. First, if the proof is evident or the presumption, great. There might be a scenario where I think they don't even have enough evidence to show the proof is evident or presumption great at this point that this offense was committed. So then I don't even move on to the dangerousness or flight standard or the condition standard. The hearing's over, I release them.
Okay, we still have several questions, but we have 2 more presenters. So let's let our presenters finish, and then we'll go back to questions.
Anything more? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Can we start with the next slide? Okay, great. So let me just start by saying, in order to detain, again, the judge has no discretion unless there's a petition on file. The State's Attorney has to file a petition in order for the judge to detain. When I get to those detention statistics, I'll get into a little more detail, but I can tell you that compared to other counties, we file more petitions to detain in this county than probably all of the other counties in the state of Illinois. The first slide is body-worn camera uploads. The police upload body-worn cameras into our TechShare system that are then made available to us. We are able to access them, and we share them with all the criminal defense attorneys and public defenders in the county. They all have a code in order to get onto TechShare. The law requires that if we're going to a detention hearing, we have to provide all of the evidence that we are relying on to the defense. So oftentimes, these body-worn camera uploads will occur in the middle of the night, and we will get them into the system, and our attorneys are drafting the petitions in the middle of the night and then show up early in the morning at 6 a.m. for first appearance court so we can get the petition on file and get the evidence to the public defenders or private attorneys so that everyone's ready to go for the detention hearing. This slide tells you the enormous increase in body-worn camera uploads that we've seen since the act went into effect. And that's the reason that Public Defender York and myself came before you many months ago to ask for an increase in staff in order to accommodate this enormous increase in evidence because we have to watch all of it. The system actually, despite that huge increase, is working very well. The police are getting those body-worn cameras, videos and videos of witnesses uploaded, and we're able to get them to the defense in time to do these hearings. All right, can we go to the next slide? So these are statistics for the first 4 months through January 17th for first appearance court only. And what you see here is that when it comes to violent crime, we're talking about murders, armed robberies, aggravated vehicular hijacking, hate crimes, home invasions, criminal sexual assaults, armed habitual criminal, threatening a public official, every single one of those petitions were granted. That is what the law was intended to do, is to keep the real violent offenders who are truly a threat to the community detained pre-trial. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see that for some of these other crimes, the numbers change. For robberies, domestic batteries, ag DUIs, the numbers go down, and then when we get down to retail theft, it's the reason that none or few of those defendants are detained. Judge Deaton kind of explained to you, because under the law it's very difficult to do so, to establish that even if that is a detainable offense, that the person is truly a threat, a real and present threat to the community or another person, or a willful flight risk. And member, to answer your question regarding the domestic batteries, we evaluate every single case where the police send the person on to court. For some of these cases, they do cite and release. They have discretion. For the felony cases, when we approve the charge, we have a discussion with them. Are we going to send them to court for conditions or detention? When they get there, we review every single case. That's the facts of the case. Sometimes the victims will show up in court and speak to our assistants about their willingness to cooperate. We look at the defendant's background and the facts, and we decide, do we have enough evidence to proceed on a detention hearing? If we do, we file the petition to detain. The fact that, we move to the next slide, the fact that 47% of the petitions are being granted, so 53% are not, to me that proves what the law was intended for, and that is our judges are using their discretion. It's a difficult burden, as Judge Deaton explained to you, in every single case for us to meet that threshold. But if you recall, I was one of 3 state's attorneys in the state who participated in drafting House Bill 1095, which dramatically changed the Pretrial Fairness Act just before it went into effect. And one thing that we all pushed for was greater judicial discretion in these cases to let judges decide. So the judges are using their discretion, but you see that 34% of the petitions that we have filed are for domestic battery because the law allows for that, and in many of those cases, defendants truly are a threat to another person or the community. Okay, next slide, please. So the issue of FTA warrants, that stands for failure to appear. These are the numbers for the first 23 and a half weeks, so they go through February 29th. These numbers that you see are for warrants that are outstanding. They do not include defendants that failed to appear and then may have been arrested a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, and now they're appearing in court again. These are cases where there are, as of February 29th, the warrants were outstanding, and you see the types of cases that they're for. Obviously, there's a lot more traffic cases filed. That's where you see the greatest number, including 193 criminal felony cases. And if we go to the next slide, if you do the math and you project that out for what the number of cases we typically file in a year against those failure to appear warrants, you see the numbers of people showing up in court, the percentages. So for felonies, it's about 84.5% of the defendants who will show up in court. 85.5%, I'm sorry. I can tell you that in years past, Cook County, even before the Pretrial Fairness Act went into effect, they were, in essence, their bond court judges were practicing the Pretrial Fairness Act. And there were stories that were published indicating that that was their appearance rate. It was about 85%. There is a lot of disagreement over whether that's a success or not, but to me, 15% of felony cases not appearing in court means we've got a lot more work to do, because I think that's a failure of the law. And it's not a result of anything that we're doing or the public defenders are doing or our judges are doing, because they're doing a great job. It's just the nature of the law. And if we go to the next slide, these are the number of appeals. So recently, the Illinois Supreme Court issued a report where they talked about Chief Judge Tice referred to the breathtaking increase in the number of appeals. This was expected. Everyone expected the numbers of appeals to rise. But the good news is that in DuPage County, as of March 12th, there were 72 Pretrial Fairness Act appeals. And actually, as of April 16th, that number's up to 79. That's an incredibly low number for a county of our size. That is a testament of the job that everyone's doing and the record that is being made in first appearance court. And I encourage all of you, if you have time, go over one morning and watch first appearance court. You would think that they've been running that courtroom for years, how well it's being run by the assistant state's attorneys, the assistant public defenders, and Judge Deaton, and other judges who fill in on the weekend. It's really incredible. So there were some rules changes that the Supreme Court just issued to deal with the increase in appeals, but again, our number is very low compared to the rest of the state. In terms of that failure to appear number, I just want to say this, that in New Jersey, in 2019, 2 years after they largely eliminated cash bond, their appearance rate in court was 91%, and in 2020, it was 97%. We're far below that. There's a number of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that New Jersey's law gives judges a lot more discretion to detain. And that's something that we have pushed for and continue to push for in Springfield, to improve this law, to give judges more discretion. And then recently, New Jersey passed a law that for certain gun offenses, actually there's a presumption of detention in those cases. In Illinois, for all cases, as Judge Deaton described, even for murder, there's always a presumption of release. So again, that is something that we hope that we can change, because there are some things I believe that can be done to improve the law, but overall, I think the law is working very well. Any questions?
Do we want to finish the
Okay.
presentations and
Okay.
then go to questions?
In that case, I will turn it over to our outstanding public defender, Jeff York.
Okay, welcome to my most boring PowerPoint presentation that I've ever done. That's okay, it's fine. I've got one later today. So I would just caution you all, this is 5 months worth of data. This is all relatively new. So I don't think I would extrapolate out based on the first 5 months of the implementation of a law of this magnitude. Before I start talking about my actual slides, let me talk about failures to appear. In the first 5 months of the Pretrial Fairness Act, the overall, when you add up all the categories, failure to appear rate was 10.41%. If you go back to the 5 months a year before, same 5 months, it was 10.42%. It's essentially the same. Now, within the categories, there are differences. The rate of felony failures to appear is definitely higher. The rate of misdemeanor offenses is definitely lower. But overall, it's essentially the same. In addition, in terms of orders of protection and domestic violence offenses, those are misdemeanor offenses. Those are the only 2 misdemeanor offenses that are potentially detainable. Under the prior law, most people were given a bond and posted on those cases. The difference is now the state has the ability to file a petition to detain, and the judges have the ability to detain. I also don't think that there are dramatic differences to the people getting out. In fact, I think fewer people charged with domestic violence or order of protection violations are getting out than before. That's just from my perspective. Okay, on to the chart stuff. The blue are cases for the 5 months prior to the implementation of the new law, of the cases that we would handle under the old bond court rules. The orange is under the Pretrial Fairness Act. So we're handling many, many more cases. So go to the next slide. If you break down that orange category into 2 parts, the blue on this chart are the Pretrial Fairness Act cases as a whole, and then the orange on top are the detention petitions that we went to hearing on. Although I will say that our numbers aren't representative of the entire court call, we do represent probably 90 to 95% of people in pretrial. Next slide, please. So before the Pretrial Fairness Act, we had 1 attorney assigned to bond court for each session. So it was every morning and then every afternoon on business days, as well as weekend and holidays. When we started planning, I said, oh, we're going to double that. We'll need 2. By the end of the planning process, before the act began, I said we definitely needed 3. And after the first several weeks, I felt we needed to move to 5, and we did. So due to attrition, we're currently at 4, which requires some of my supervisors to backfill on certain days. But it definitely increased the workload, and it's evolved over time. Next slide, please. Initially, in first appearance, we were just having those attorneys covered during the week, like Judge Deeden, and weekends and holidays, we were using courtroom attorneys. That process wasn't the best, because the people with the least amount of experience with this law were during our heaviest days, being Saturday and Sunday. So we went to kind of a new model. So I cover it more like an emergency room. So instead of the green, my pretrial people now cover all 7 days. So we still use, on the weekends, we supplement with courtroom attorneys, but we have someone who knows what they're doing, essentially, and does it every day. We have at least 2 per day. Next slide. Just in terms of an impact and the timing of it and why it takes so long, under the old bond court rules, we would prep a client over the phone. I needed about 5 minutes per case when I would cover it. Both sides prepared individually all of the cases, and then we do court. The new process starts earlier, and it's much more complex. there's much more information, and we need much more time to be ready. So the state has to look at a case and decide if they're going to file a petition or what conditions they're going to propose. If they want to file a petition, they have to type it and file it. Pre-trial services then has to interview a client, a report is necessary, and then we get the case. That's in addition to getting discovery, and it depends on how much the state wants to rely on their petition. Then we have to talk to the client. So 5 minutes has multiplied exponentially in terms of preparing for these hearings. Next slide, please. So instead of getting ready all at once and then doing court, we have to kind of do this, I call it like the weave, if you've ever played basketball. I mean, so it's people moving around all over the place. The state provides us information, they provide pretrial information, pretrial provides it to us, and we do a lot of things where things are happening. It's when you watch it, if you watched one person, they're always moving. There's somewhere else that they have to be. So it's not uncommon for one of my attorneys to do a hearing, then go talk to pretrial, then go back to the intake area and talk to someone in the jail, and then come back out and do a hearing. It's kind of a constant movement. Next slide, please. Our goal is to keep the judge on the bench and busy, so it requires a lot of coordination. It's very common where one attorney is in front of the judge, one attorney is filling out orders from the last case or for the next case, and one is meeting with a client or reading discovery. I didn't address it in my slides, but I would agree with Bob that the biggest driver of the increased headcount for our office, even though we've added quite a few to pretrial court, is body cameras. And really, I've had to pull people out of reducing those caseloads from courtrooms to cover pretrial. So I'm working to eventually get back there. And next up and last, so he can take all the questions for all of us, is Bob McKellen.
Good morning. Probation's pretrial unit provides two main functions for our circuit. Our pretrial officers complete a pretrial investigation report and complete a risk assessment on individuals in first appearance court. Copies of the report and assessment are given to the judge, state's attorney, and public defender for any detention hearing or release conditions hearing. We don't complete a report on every case in first appearance court. We only complete a report on instances where the state has filed a petition to detain or where the public defender and state's attorney cannot agree on release conditions. The second function we perform is that we supervise individuals that are released with conditions into the community. Conditions include GPS, alcohol monitoring, no contact orders, things like that. The next several slides will show data on our program pre and post Pretrial Fairness Act. Similar to Jeff, the blue is pre-PFA, the orange is post-PFA. The first slide you have here is pretrial investigation reports that we've completed. You can see clearly that our workload has increased dramatically since the implementation of the Pretrial Fairness Act. Double, sometimes triple the amount of reports that we prepared. Why is that? Pre-PFA, we didn't complete a report unless a person was unable to post bond. A lot of times people said they were able to post bond, they were released, or they said they were able to post bond and they didn't want a pretrial report. Again, right now we're seeing an increase due to the petitions to detain, as well as not agreeing to conditions, which that's what we're supposed to be doing. Next slide, please. So this slide represents pretrial supervision ordered by the court. Right after the Pretrial Fairness Act went into play in September, October and November, we did see a significant increase in the number of cases that were ordered to pretrial supervision. Since that time, the numbers have leveled off. Next slide, please. What has increased is our average daily population, the people that we supervise on a daily basis on pretrial. The blue represents last year. We were in the 1800s. Now we're well into the 2000s. We have more people on pretrial supervision than we have ever had. Next slide, please. GPS ordered. There was talk about GPS and electronic monitoring. This slide represents cases where GPS was ordered and the person was placed on pretrial supervision. This is a little deceiving. The next slide is clear. With this slide in the blue, just because someone was ordered to GPS, because there was a bond attached to it, some of those people did not get released from jail, so we never got them, although there was a GPS order. Back pre-PFA, 63% of the people that were ordered to GPS were released. So 37 were not released from jail, even though they were ordered to GPS. 96% of the people post-PFA are released from jail. Next slide. And this represents that. You can see our GPS installations, the ones we're actually supervising in the community, have increased substantially. Next slide. That has increased our average daily population of GPS cases. I will say that about 75% of our GPS cases are domestic violence-related cases. Next slide. SCRAM is our alcohol monitoring program. SCRAM, it goes up and down. There's no rhyme or reason to it. We have not seen a drastic increase since the PFA came into play. Historically, we have between 200 and 225 people per day on alcohol monitoring in the community. And that's what I have. I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thank you all. I do want to let you know this presentation will be sent out to all of you at the end of this meeting, so any of these numbers you're looking for will have that. I've been informed by our stakeholders, though, if there's specific questions, I know we're running a little late on time, but if there's specific questions and you contact me or them directly, we'll make sure they get answered.
All right, let's keep these questions brief. Member Krajewski.
I just had one, thank you everybody for the presentation. You know, you guys have done a phenomenal job to kind of comply with the act. My question is, and I think Jeff, you touched on it, the misdemeanors are kind of the same. It's the felonies that are concerned to, I guess, myself with the, you know, amount that are out there. Do we even have the resources? Are we even going after any outstanding warrants is question one. I mean, do we even have the time? And then question two, once those people are picked up, either for another crime or because they've been pulled over maybe and there's a warrant, and they're brought back in, I assume they go back into the first appearance court. Is that now failure to appear the first time, is that considered then a flight risk that the judge is able to then keep them? And last, I think we got to see what we can do as a county to support the state law to kind of get towards New Jersey, where we get closer to 96, 97% of people actually showing up for the trial and giving the judges a little more discretion. I know that's what you've advocated for. I think we need to continue to support you and how we can advocate in Springfield to just make a little bit modification. But it clearly looks like from the misdemeanor standpoint, that's kind of what it was intended to do, and the numbers are about the same, but it's the felonies that concern me, both for the safety and the victims who have been victimized for these people not showing back up in court.
So to answer the first part of your question, yes, it is taxing on the police to go out and have to rearrest someone if they don't show up in court, especially if they don't live in the county. And I don't have the percentage, but for a number of those people, we get them back into court because they're arrested on something else. Regarding that, one of the anomalies in the law is that you can be out on pretrial release and commit another offense. If that new offense is not detainable, you have to be released. So
isn't there a flight risk second component to that?
But what happens then is on the original offense, we can go into court in front of that judge and file a petition to revoke their pretrial release. So on the new offense, the judge will have to set conditions, and then they stay in custody. They go in front of the judge either that day or the next day, where their original case is pending. We file a petition to revoke their release, and they can be released. That's kind of an anomaly in the law. We've seen it with burglaries. We see it a lot in domestic cases where there's a violation of the conditions of bail. Judges are limited in what they can do. They can sanction the person, which only involves 30 days or to admonishment. So that is another area of the law, I believe, that needs to be tweaked so we give judges more discretion.
I think that's something we should look legislatively to try to help tweak the law to get it to, you know, the intent and to make it work for everybody. Thank you.
Member Garcia.
I'm going to try and make this quick. First of all, I should know all the acronyms. What is SCRAM?
SCRAM is I'll let Bob answer that.
SCRAM is our secure, continuous, remote alcohol monitoring. It's a bracelet that person wears that detects alcohol if they're using alcohol.
All right, thank you. And probation staff, have we increased the amount of your staff? Because it looks like the amount of work you have has increased exponentially.
We anticipated the increase, and for the past 2 years, we have been planning for the increase. We've changed some protocols internally. We have also cross-trained all of our pretrial staff to cover all different functions of pretrial.
So at this point, it seems like it's working.
Right
what
now,
you
it's
have.
working. If the numbers continue to rise, then we're looking at needing more staff.
Okay, and one more question, really quickly. Public Defender York did answer that the number of FTA warrants are essentially the same, I believe. That was what you stated before the PFA and then after.
Overall, yes.
Yes, and so I guess my concern, my thinking is that, did we have a lot of the people who are not coming in because of warrants? Because we got people before were able to get out if they were able to afford the bail.
Correct.
Yes. So
And
that was.
some of them didn't show up either.
Correct. So that was already an issue.
Yes.
So, okay, I
The
just want to make
issue's
that
the
clear that
same.
that was an issue then, and it's still an issue now. It may
Yes.
not be because of the PFA. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, we have Member Galassi, then Member Yu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For State's Attorney Berlin, one of the statistics that is concerning to me is the 16 unlawful use of a weapon by felons that were not detained. You know, a lot of us are fighting for stricter gun laws, and if we're getting these gun laws implemented and then these felons are committing crimes with guns and they're not being detained, to me that work is, you know, for naught. So is that something that's different in the New Jersey law that we could change in Illinois to make that stronger? Because I do know that I was pushing for that in the legislative agenda, and it was not accepted. So is that something that's different in New Jersey?
So New Jersey, their amended law allows for presumption of detention on all gun offenses except just simple gun possession, which these, the numbers you're talking about are gun possession by a felon. So it's slightly different. What I can tell you is this: we're filing petitions. Not all of them get granted, and I'm not saying anything about our judges because they're doing a great job. They're interpreting the law. And the law, as Judge Deaton says, it requires a number of findings that judges have to look at. And they are using their discretion. The armed habitual criminal. So these are people who are possessing guns illegally, who have 2 or more qualifying felonies in their background. 100% of those have been detained.
Okay, so it could be one, they could have committed one other crime, be in possession of an illegal weapon, and they would be released to the community.
They could be.
They could be.
You know, somebody may have a retail theft from 20 years ago, but because it was a felony, they can't possess a gun. I'm just using that as an example where a judge might exercise their discretion.
Sure, okay. Is that stronger in New Jersey? Like, do you feel like the New Jersey law is stronger for judges' discretion?
On the gun crimes, it is because of the presumption.
Okay. I also just wanted to make the point that even though the FTAs are the same now as before the law, the felonies are up, and to me that's a concern for the safety of the community, is whether the people that are convicted of or accused of a felony are showing back up, and if that number is higher, that is a concern of mine. And then finally, I just wanted to discuss the crime that kind of rattled District 3 in Hinsdale. There was a smash and grab that was videotaped. It was very scary for our residents to see, and none of those gentlemen were arrested, despite the fact that they had everything on video. And my understanding is some had prior arrests, and they still were not able to be detained. So is that, if somebody's committing residential burglary and they had prior arrests, is there any way to hold those people?
So residential burglary, yes. That is detainable under the dangerousness standard. The case you're talking about was burglary to a business, where the defendant had a sledgehammer. And we did seek to detain, unfortunately, for burglary, under the dangerousness standard, judges can only detain if they actually cause injury or harm to somebody else. And in that case, there was no injury. And I think there was a level of frustration in that particular case.
I got many, many calls from constituents in that case because it was very upsetting.
Again, if judges had more discretion, at least there was a possibility that that person could have been detained. And that's all we're asking for, is to give judges discretion. I'm a huge proponent of judicial discretion in these cases. Judges are in the best position to make these decisions.
Well, thank you for all your work you did to get
Remember
the
you.
changes made.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say again, I really appreciate all the work that you do, State's Attorney Berlin and Public Defender York and all the players. I know I'm harping on this just because I'm a domestic violence attorney, but I want to go back to, I think you were trying to address my question before about why there were so many not filed petitions for domestic battery, and maybe some of those were misdemeanors, and you're saying some of the victims arrived in court, that kind of thing. But with regard to VOOP charges for violation of order of protection, I think Member Glassy also mentioned it earlier, I think those are really important because a lot of those VOOP charges are really felonies, right? So the fact that there are 50% of them that are not filed, and I'm just wondering if there are specific reasons for that, if there's a diversion program, not anger management, but specifically domestic violence perpetrator training that you're sending the perpetrators to instead. I just wanted to know the reason why 33 are not filed.
So violation of order of protection is a misdemeanor offense. If it's a felony and there's great bodily harm, we file on those. If it's a case-by-case analysis. I can tell you that we have filed more petitions than any other county. Percentage-wise, we file an overwhelming number of petitions on domestic violence cases, but we have to look at every case and determine, can we meet the threshold? If we can't prove that someone's a threat to a persons or the community, we don't file because we have to have some basis, a good faith basis to file. But as you saw by the percentage, 34% of our petitions that we do file to detain are on domestic cases.
Okay, last question, Member Augustin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually, I'm the chairwoman of the ISACO Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I really think that we need to do something to be able to get more tools for the judges to be able to make decisions. Obviously, they've got to live within the realm of the current law, but I think the New Jersey law is the direction we need to go with some tweaks, but we need to get that done because it gives the judges more options and more things to look at to decide if somebody should be retained or not. And the reason for that is also that it's going to affect our public defender's office, our probation office, the way that it is, obviously, because they only have so many things that they can look at, where if they have more things that they can look at and more options available to detain someone or retain someone, I think that's the direction we need to go to. And as policymakers, we should be stepping up and doing that and making those statements. I do know that there is something that came from, I think, the Illinois Supreme Court, and then they did a task force, and now they're talking about having a basic statewide centralized public defender's department. And we're all engaged in that now, although that was made by a court, that decision. So it's kind of interesting where the courts are making policy decisions, but yet the legislators are really the ones that should make policy, in my view, should make the policy decision. So when things like this come up, it's great to have this conversation, but we also need to put those words into action. And any way we can help our departments in this county is the way to go. So I look forward to seeing something on even our DuPage County Legislative Committee to address it. And I will definitely bring it up at the ISACO committee meeting that we're going to be having on Friday. So thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Okay, last question. Member Eckhoff.
Thank you. I was just wondering for everyone, have we hired all the additional people that need to be hired as a result of this act? From the state's attorney's office, public defender, probation, and if not, how many more people do we need to hire, and how much is that going to cost?
1 million more. No. So I was at 58 head count, and my head count's a little higher than that. I'm currently at 55 because of attrition. So I think it's too hard to bring too many people on at once, and there's not enough people out there to get. So I certainly am not done adding. I'm certainly slowing it down, but I'm going to need more. So for instance, when I thought I needed 3 over there, I had to pull 2 people that were doing courtroom assignments and pull them over to pretrial, and I haven't gotten back to filling those other 2 spots. So I mean, so there is going to be more of a need, especially with the number of body cameras, and that continues to rise. I think we all need to reduce our caseloads so they can spend the time looking at those videos.
Okay.
We're still in the process of hiring the positions that you've already funded. And we're hopeful that if the attorneys to be who have offers, if they're successful taking the bar exam this summer, we're hopeful in the fall to finally be full or close to full.
Are we having to increase their salaries to get them?
You have, significantly, yes.
Okay, so I just want to mention one thing I can tell you firsthand.
Probation is looking at converting some of our existing headcount and moving them to pretrial. I think it's too early to tell if we'll need it for next year, need more personnel.
Okay, Candace?
I will say we are considering adding 1 or 2 more in our IT department to help with the data requests that are coming in.
Okay, so I can tell you from personal experience that there are many legislators in Springfield that do support the New Jersey model. So I think with the work that we're doing here, I think we'll have a great case to have another amendment to the Safety Act, and I would certainly support that. We have a very large agenda. We also have executive session today, so I will forego my chair comments, but we will take a 5-minute break before we start. Okay, did everybody get, hello? Did everybody get some pizza? Just kidding, there was no pizza. Okay, on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda after pizza. I seek a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Okay, all right. 24, 13, 17 DuPage County Board Minutes, regular meeting, Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. 24, 12, 13, 4, 4, 2024, auto debit pay list. 24, 12, 16, 4, 5, 2024 pay list. 4, 9, 2024 pay list. 24, 12, 58, 4, 11, 2024 IDOR wire transfer. 24, 12, 85, 4, 12, 2024 pay list. 24, 12, 86, 4, 12, 2024 auto debit pay list. 24, 1302, 4, 16, 2024 pay list. 24, 12, 38 Recorder's Office Monthly Revenue Statement, March 2024. 24, 12, 87 Treasurer's Office Monthly Report of Investment and Deposits for March 2024. 24, 12, 89 Change orders for various contracts as specified in the attached packet. All in favor? Okay, and on to County Board and Member Childress.
I apologize. Who was the motion and second on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will rise today for and move on CBR 2324 for the appointment of William Sullivan to the
Second.
Salt Creek Sanitary District.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. And Chaplin.
Aye. Okay, Member Childress.
I will also move on CBR 2424 for Michael Mashal to be appointed to the West Chicago Fire Protection District.
Leave is granted. Member Childress.
And I would like to move on 2524 for the appointment of Barbara Enthal to the Wheaton Sanitary District.
Okay, leave is granted. Thank you, Member Childress. And Finance and Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of FIR 7124, approval of employee compensation and job classification adjustments, Recorder of Deeds.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. And Cahill.
Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 7224, approval of employee compensation and job classification adjustments, Division of Transportation.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 7324, acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Workforce Service for low, moderate income individuals, including immigrants, migrants, and refugees, intergovernmental agreement in the amount of $177,099.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 7424, approval of employee compensation and job classification adjustments probation.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 7524, budget transfers 42324, various companies and accounting units.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 7624, approval of employment compensation and classification adjustments, community services.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Okay. Thank you. I move approval of FIP 1224, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Aloha Print Group to provide on-demand printing services for various county departments for the period of April 29th, 2024 through November 30th, 2025, for contract total amount not to exceed $227,894.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIO 224, determining the compensation of members of the county board. I think we're going to need a roll call on this, possibly. Do we want a roll call on this?
Does anybody want a roll call? Okay, we'll have a roll call, please.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert.
No.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
No.
Zay. And Cahill. 12 voting aye, 6 voting nay.
Okay, with the vote of 12 to 6, the motion passes. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIO 324, determining compensation of various county elected officials.
Okay, did we want a roll call? We'll take a roll call on this, please. Roll call, please.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
No.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
No.
Zay. And Cahill. 12 voting aye, 6 voting nay.
Okay, again, 12 to 6, motion passes. And thank you, Member Chaplin.
Thank you.
On to Animal Services and Member Krajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple brief things. We had a lady in front of us speaking today. Laura talked to that person, both when it happened and also the people involved, and she has all the documentation. She'd be happy to share it with you. But she also just spent 30 minutes in the 3500 with her, and I think cleared things up. But that cat was surrendered to us as somebody who actually had it for 3 years. It was their cat, but they had it outside too. But I think everything's fine with that. In addition, we've had 3 ladies, I think the one that was talking about drugging her dog and then complaining about the drugs that we were giving animals. They're coming in Wednesday or Thursday. Laura's finally got them to come so she can explain to them what we do. And I know 99% of what she was saying, that the 3 ladies, wasn't accurate. They just don't understand what we do over there. So they're actually coming in, and Laura will help. I'm going to go to the meeting too, just to educate them. And then finally, I want to thank everybody, especially the chairwoman, bought ourselves a table, and all the members who came to the gala. They've the Friends Foundation has raised, so far they're still counting. I think they got a couple checks here to drop off. That they're well over $250,000 from that event that night, and continuing to count the money that's coming in. So that was a great kickoff to the capital campaign, which the foundation will be working on raising millions of dollars over the next couple of years. And I think did a really good job, and all the members who showed up, thank you again for coming. And the Friends, DuPage Animal Friends Foundation, and the staff over there did a phenomenal job in that event. So thank you.
It was a great event, and I want to really say thank you to you, Member Krajewski, and also to Member Desart, because you put on a beautiful event and did a great job. So next time I need to raise money, I know where to go. Okay, Development and Member Tornatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, thank you to Vice Chair Rutledge for covering for me last week when I was a bit under the weather. Move approval of DCO 23-24 zoning 2390 to approve a conditional use to operate an indoor
Second.
kennel in a B2 general business zoning district.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Tornatori.
Aye.
You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert.
Aye.
Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. And Schwarzy.
Okay, Member Tornatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of DCO 24-24 zoning 24-9, a variation to reduce the rear yard setback for a new pool shed from 3 feet to approximately 2 feet.
Leave is granted. Member
Thank
Tornatori.
you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DCO 25-24 zoning 24-10, Chicago title, a conditional use for a principal recreational use in an R2 zoning district to allow for a 2,112 square foot timber frame barn with horse stables to be built for the owner's horses.
Leave is granted. Member Tornatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DCO 26-24 zoning 24-12, a mobile Glen Ellen, be a variation to reduce the corner side setback for a relocated sign from 15 feet to approximately 3.1 due to IDOT right-of-way taking. and a variation to reduce the rear yard setback for a relocated site from the required 20-foot setback to approximately 2.7 feet.
Leave is granted. Member
Thank
Tonatory.
you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DCO 27-24, zoning 2413, to approve a variation to reduce an interior setback of an existing fence from 3 feet to approximately 0.
Leave is granted. Member Tonatory.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move approval of DCO 28-14, zoning 2415, to approve a conditional use to allow an existing shed to remain less than 10 feet from the west property line, or it has existed for at least 5 years.
Leave is granted. Member Tonatory.
Finally, Madam Chair, move approval of DCO 29-24, zoning 2416, to allow a conditional use to allow a 6-foot, 100% closed fence within a 10-foot corner side yard setback.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Tonatory.
Chair.
And Economic Development and Member LaPlante.
Thank you so much, Chair Conroy. By way of committee update, I would like to say that I am extremely pleased to inform the board that during our Economic Development Committee last week, we heard from our trusted partner, Choose DuPage, and our 2 consultant firms, C.H. Johnson Consultants and Web Management, regarding our feasibility report for the performing arts and sports tourism in DuPage County. Both consultants presented their Phase 1 findings to our committee in accordance with our unanimously board-approved resolution. The results of the studies will be posted on the Choose DuPage website for all to view, and any questions or anything, I know that Mr. Bedeloff and myself would be happy to review the results of the study with anyone who is interested. In a pragmatic effort to control costs and ensure good and proper processes were followed, the studies were split into 2 phases. The first phase was designed to determine if the need, appetite, and opportunities for growth for the performing arts and sports tourism exist in DuPage County. So an inventory of existing facilities for the performing arts and sports tourism venues was also presented. Drum roll, please. The consultants indicated that indeed the appetite and opportunities do exist. With respect to the performing arts, the consultant recommended 3 options for consideration, and the Economic Development Committee unanimously approved continuing the feasibility study into the next phase, focused on these 3 options. The second phase, requiring no additional funding, will dive deeper into potential locations, operations, and other issues germane to this exciting initiative. The second phase should take approximately 4 to 6 months to complete. With regards to sports tourism, the consultant provided 2 options for consideration. Number 1, for smaller outdoor facilities, and 2, for a larger indoor facility, the latter of which is already being explored by at least 2 other municipalities in the region. Therefore, the consultant recommended a wait-and-see approach on the large indoor facility while continuing to explore smaller outdoor facilities with this feasibility study. Again, no additional funding is required for this phase of exploration. A resolution will be brought before the full board in the near future to allow for the time necessary to complete the studies so that the board may be fully informed of the opportunities, possible path forward, costs, challenges, etc. I'm very excited, and I look forward to working with my colleagues on this wonderful opportunity to continue to drive the performing arts and sports tourism in DuPage County and all the good that will come from it. So thank you very much for allowing me to present that. I move to approve EDP 124, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to World Relief Corporation of National Evangelicals to utilize state of Illinois funds awarded to assist authorized to work immigrants and refugees residing in DuPage County and the Chicago metro area so they may achieve self-sufficient employment for the period of April 1st, 24 through June 30th, 24 for an amount not to exceed $62,000. Other professional services not suitable for competitive bid per 55 ILCS 551022C.
It has been, whoop, go ahead.
One more sentence. Pursuant to DuPage County Procurement Ordinance 2-3511B, funds will be used to continue finished programming for which funding has been cut or exhausted, as well as to complete development of new proprietary programming.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
LaPlante.
Aye.
Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. And Krajewski.
Okay, thank you, Member LaPlante. And
Thank you,
on
Chair.
to Environmental and Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. Happy Earth Week, everybody. Go out and plant a tree or Anything you'd love to see grow? No smart comments from the back row.
Peanut
I want to
gallery.
thank the DOT and for what they did in our District 6 along the prairie path there. They took out a lot of invasive species, put in some beautiful things there. So we'll look forward to watching that grow and improve. And then also I wanted to thank the Health Department. They are coordinating with the City of West Chicago, oh, and I had it all up here, to engage more people with nature in West Chicago. So educational programs, WIC outreach and distribution of fresh fruits and vegetables. The timing of this work is perfect to help launch our mobile WIC services. So they are identifying West Chicago as one of those places where we need more fresh fruits and vegetables, more people that are engaged in gardening, those kind of things. So thank you to the Health Department for that.
Okay, thank you, Member Rutledge. And Human Services, Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind the board here that the DuPage Care Center golf outing is, they're still taking applications. It's June 28th. It's $250 for golf and dinner. If you just want to enjoy dinner, it's $65. They also have multiple options for sponsorships and things like that. So please reach out to me or the DuPage Care Center if you have more questions. I'd like to move on item HSP 2024, a recommendation for the approval of a contract issued to Clifton Larson Allen LLP CLA for preparation and submission of annual Medicare and Medicaid cost reports for the DuPage Care Center for the period covering May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2028 for a total amount not to exceed $33,200.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Schwarzy.
Aye.
Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. And Rutledge.
Okay, thank you, Member Schwarzy. And Judicial and Public Safety, Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would like to thank you for having the Safety Act 6-month update to the adding it to the county board agenda, because even it's premature to really dive into that data, but that was such an education for all of us. So it's nice to see how things are working before we start talking about the data. And I appreciate everybody who came and shared all their wisdom. Next, I want to remind everyone of our joint special call JPS and Legislative Committee meeting today after County Board. It's the all-you-can-eat JPS buffet today. But we are going to discuss an important piece of legislation that is currently within the General Assembly that is looking into fundamentally changing how public defenders' offices are set up throughout the state. That will greatly affect us, so I hope everyone can attend that meeting. Next, today's IGA is the culmination of the Sheriff's talks with DuCom to make this change happen, to switch over from ACDC to DuCom. I want to thank Deputy Chief Billadu for his due diligence in finding the lowest cost for this vital service. And I also want to thank both ACDC and DuCom for being such wonderful PSAPs. They save a lot of lives. So with that, I would like to move on item JPSR-11-24, approving an intergovernmental agreement with DuPage Public Safety Communications, DuCom, for Police Department dispatch services.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. And Eckhoff.
Okay, Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move to approve JPSP-14-24, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Trinity Services Group, Inc. to provide meals for the inmates and officers in the jail for the Sheriff's Office for the period of June 1st, 2024 through May 31st, 2025 for a contract total amount of $1,225,031.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, I'd like to move on JPSP-15-24, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Sapphire Health LLC for the purchase of software licensing for an electronic medical record system in the Correctional Center for the period of May 1st, 2024 through April 30th, 2029 for a contract total not to exceed $299,283.21.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
Okay, and next I'd like to move to approve JPS CO-2-24, recommendation for the approval of a change order amending purchase order 5441-1 serve issued to Microgenics Corporation to provide court-ordered drug testing and supplies to increase the purchase order in an amount of $48,000, resulting in an amended purchase order total amount not to exceed $156,114.60.
Leave is granted. Member Evans.
And finally, I would like to move to approve JPS CO-3-24, amendment to purchase order 2846-1 serve issued to Journal Technologies, Inc. for a case management system for the new pretrial case configurations total in the amount of $10,000.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Evans.
Thank you.
Okay, Legislative and Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this is a long meeting. It's going to be even longer. So with respect for time, this morning I will forgo the usual legislative update. Chip Humes, Mark Polis, and Greg Bales all sent updates, and Cheryl Marquet forwarded them, so I hope you'll read them. I will say and echo Member Evans' comments that regarding the potential statewide public defender legislation that I brought up a few weeks ago during JPS, there will be a robust discussion by DuPage County Chief Public Defender Jeff York immediately after this board meeting. Of course, you're all invited to join. I hope you'll stick around for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Desart. Public Works and Member Garcia.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to say in my committee update, I just wanted to give another thanks to all the staff that coordinated all the information for the 2024 Environmental Progress Report. I know this has been such a long meeting, it's going to kind of be a blip on everybody, but it was a lot of work to put that together, and I'm really proud of the work DuPage is doing here in terms of sustainability, so I want to say a thank you to them. I wanted to make a motion to approve PWP 001024, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Groot Inc. for refuse disposal and recycling services for the Woodridge Green Valley Wastewater Treatment Facility and the Knollwater Wastewater Treatment Facility for Public Works for the period of June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025 for a total contract amount not to exceed $117,500 per most qualified offer.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Garcia.
Aye.
Guston. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Tornatore. Yu.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin. Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
And Galassi.
Okay, Member Garcia.
I want to make a motion to approve FMP 001924, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Aaron's Hogan Walker LLC, doing business as AHW LLC, to furnish and deliver one John Deere 4075R compact utility tractor for facilities management grounds for the period through November 30th, 2024, for a total contract amount not to exceed $53,302.23.
Leave is granted. Member Garcia.
I make a motion to approve FMP 002024, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Berglund Construction Company to install fall protection, which will improve safety and access to existing equipment at the power plant for facilities management for the period of April 23rd, 2024 through April 22nd, 2025 for a contract total amount not to exceed $240,350.
Leave is granted. Member Garcia.
And finally, I make a motion to approve FMP 002124, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Groot Inc. to provide refuse disposal, recycling, and asbestos pickup services for DuPage County facilities for facilities management for the period of June 1st, 2024 through May 31st, 2025 for a contract total amount not to exceed $125,045.78.
Leave is granted. Thank you. Whoop. Oh. Who was the second? Okay. All right.
Can't do it, I mean.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Garcia. Okay, Stormwater and Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a brief committee update. I just want to thank all those board members and the chair who came down to the atrium last week to support the Sustainable Design Challenge. The high school teams were impressive with their displays. Judging still in process, and once we have the winning teams determined, we'll recognize them at a Stormwater Committee meeting. But again, thanks for coming down.
Yes, very cool event, by the way. Okay, and transportation, Member Ozog.
Technology.
Oh, technology. Oh, I'm sorry, Member you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention that we are having our very first ever DuPage County Municipal Technology Roundtable discussion on May 1st, 2024 at 10 a.m. And this session aims to foster improved communication and collaboration among the county and municipalities. We'll be focusing on sharing technology best practices, guidelines, policies, and solutions to enhance our collective services for DuPage County residents, and a number of municipalities have already RSVP'd, so I'm very excited about that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member you. And transportation, and Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank Vice Chair Torrentori for handling the transportation report today. I also want to thank Member Garcia and Public Works for the environmental progress report. The Transportation Department is certainly doing their part. And I also want to thank members Rutledge, Schwarzy, and Mr. Zay for helping us to plant oak trees on the Prairie Path on Friday, and also thanks to Morton Arboretum for their involvement. The Prairie Paths and the Great Western Trail, our paths are a real jewel of our county, and they've been used more than ever since the pandemic. So I think I covered it. Okay, and thank you so much. My first two items today prove that spring is here. I move to approve DTR 001724, an awarding resolution to Builders Paving LLC
Second.
for the 2024 Pavement Maintenance North Program, an estimated county cost of $4,483,556.81 per lowest responsible bid.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Ozog.
Yes.
Rutledge. Schwarzy. Torrentori. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin. Childress.
Yes.
Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. And LaPlante.
Okay, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTR 001824, awarding resolution to K5 Construction Corporation for the 2024 Pavement Maintenance South Program for an estimated county cost of $6,975,390.65 per lowest responsible bid.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTR 001924, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Village of Downers Grove for the placement and collation of automatic license plate readers on various county highways, no county cost.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTR 002024, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and York Township Road District for the York Township 2024 Road Maintenance Program, no county cost.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
I move for approval of DTP 002424, recommendation for the approval of a contract to First Aid Corporation doing business as First Aid Corporation to refurnish and deliver automotive aerosols and cleaners as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period April 24th, 2024 through April 23, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $30,000 per lowest responsible bid.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
I move for approval of DTP 002524, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Northern Contracting Incorporated to furnish, deliver, repair, and install guardrails as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period May 12, 2024 through May 11, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $50,000 per lowest responsible bid.
Leave is
Third and
granted,
final
Member
renewal.
Ozog.
I move for approval of DTP 002624, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Sabora Group Incorporated to provide professional construction engineering services for the 2024 Pavement Maintenance North Program for a contract total not to exceed $452,425 from April 23rd, 2024 through July 30th, 2025, professional services vetted through a qualification-based selection process in compliance with Local Government Professional Services Selection Act.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
I move for approval of DTP 002724, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Premier Engineering Limited to provide professional construction engineering services for the 2024 Pavement Maintenance South Program for a contract total not to exceed $534,706 from April 23, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Professional services, architects, engineers, land surveyors, vetted through a qualification-based selection process in compliance with Local Government Professional Services Selection Act.
Leave is granted, Member Ozog.
Thank you. And finally, I move for approval of 241262, amendment to DTR 0161B19, a local public agency agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation for the improvements of County Highway 33, 75th Street, for an increase of 16 cents for a final county cost of $837,573.31.
Okay, we will need a roll call on this.
Ozog.
Yes.
Rutledge. Shorzy. Tornatore. You.
Aye.
Zay. Cahill. Chaplin.
Aye.
Childress. Covert. Desart. Eckhoff. Evans.
Aye.
Galassi. Garcia. Guston. Krajewski. And LaPlante.
Okay, thank you, Member Ozog, and let it not be unsaid that we appreciate your expertise in the transportation area. We also very much appreciate your ability to read as clearly and quickly as you do.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. 16 cents, 6 million, I tell you, we get it done in the Transportation Department.
It's important. Okay. Now we'll move
Thank you.
on to discussion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business? Member Desart.
Thank you. This is actually probably new business, but I don't want to wait till after the conversation. So I just want to say really quickly, but very, very importantly, tomorrow is Administrative Professionals Appreciation Day. So I would like to thank all of our administrative professionals in the county, and a special appreciation to Heidi Blakely, our administrative professional on the Legislative Committee. But, you know, DuPage County has the best administrative professionals on the planet, and we couldn't do any of this without you. So thank you, and I appreciate you.
Okay. Member Childress. I think we all second that. Thank you, Member Desart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick notes. I'd like to thank State's Attorney Berlin for the tour last week, and Bonnie Whedon and the whole group, Candace Adams. It was well received. We got a lot of information. It was a whole day. We enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And I also want to recognize Member Desart. She came to the NACP Gala and met Bradley Campbell, and she talked to his mother, and they're going to get together, and she's going to give him more exposure in his public speaking, so thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, anybody else? Okay, now we'll move on to new business, and I have a couple comments to make before I turn it over to Member Zay. As we approach new business today, I will turn the floor over to Member Zay, who, with a bipartisan group of board members, requested this morning's discussion. But before I do, I think it's important to frame that discussion. Today's conversation is not about elections. It's about procurement and operating a transparent, open, and equitable procurement process that provides opportunities for vendors to participate and offers the lowest price and best value to our taxpayers. Again, it is not about elections. Our clerk, it needs to be said, our clerk has done an amazing job with elections and needs to be celebrated for that. She took a big risk by going to voting anywhere on election day, something we should be very proud of. We were the first county that did that, and it went off without any issues for the second year in a row. This is about public trust. Everyone in this organization must earn the public's trust every day. Just saying, "Trust me," is not enough. That's why we have laws, rules, and regulations to support government operations, provide a level playing field for everyone, and ensure we are acting in a manner that earns the public's trust. It occurred to me during all of our meeting when we were going through different committee reports how many times the bidding and lowest bidder number was referred to. That should not go unnoticed. No one is ganging up on the clerk's office and trying to diminish what she has accomplished. But her lack of concern and commitment to the basic tenets of public administration diminishes all of us. The public just sees DuPage County. They see us as one enterprise. And when someone shows such open disregard for the rules that govern our public bodies, we have to push back. So even though our concerns are limited to procurement today, please remember that this is simply about the procurement process. If the clerk is failing to comply with the laws, rules, and regulations, experience teaches us that the public can then be expected to question all of the actions of that office. That is in no way to build or maintain, the public's faith and trust. I ask everyone to be respectful and as succinct as they can about their comments and statements, and we will since Member Zay was the one who requested this discussion, Member Zay, you're being recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, we're here, like the chair had said, because of a memo that we received from the auditor on April 11th, 2024. The subject is invoices not recommended for payment. And then he went through 3 invoices from the clerk's office that happened to be from the election division, and that's where it started. And then on the 16th, we received another email from the auditor's office talking about paying these invoices. And then there was a conflict of legal opinion, which then the state's attorney weighed in. And so now we have 2 other countywide elected officials engaging a non-bidding process. And Auditor White basically says they have not demonstrated that the clerk has complied with state competitive bidding laws, and no response was received. So then it comes back, and then we get some kind of response that said the clerk's office refers to a 1973 ruling that they don't have to do it, which then the state's attorney disagrees, who again, we've gone through this before, the state's attorney's office is our lawyer. They make legal recommendations. I don't always agree with what the state's attorney says, but he's our lawyer. He makes those decisions. They have the staff. That's another thing that bothers me. We go through this process. The numerous times that our staff, the county staff, the state's attorney staff, has to engage the clerk's office along with the auditor to get things done. I don't know how clear it is that we need to bid stuff. And why do we need to bid stuff? We need to bid stuff, A, to protect us, to make sure we're getting the lowest bid, that we're spending the taxpayers' money the right way. No one's saying that the clerk has to use our procurement. No one's saying that we have to okay anything. We're saying it has to be bid, plain and simple. That's what it comes down to. But then we get conflicting legal opinions, and the state's attorney has to weigh in. That's where I get confused. Now we got the clerk's response yesterday. I want to thank the Daily Herald for sending it to me first, but that's fine. But now there's another legal opinion from another attorney general. So my question first to the state's attorney's office, is anybody in their office giving the clerk this advice? And if not, does the clerk have an attorney on staff that we don't know about, or are they paying somebody else that's giving them legal opinion? Because last time I checked, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal opinions. But this looks like someone's giving legal opinions who's not an attorney, or they're taking advice from somebody else. And our state's attorney is basically saying, no, we disagree with this. So where do we go from here? And then it bothers me then, the auditor comes back and says, well, they did the work, we have to pay them, and guess what? They're gonna do it in November again, so we have to pay them again. So 2 wrongs are gonna make a right? We talked about tort liability today. What does this open us up to? Can somebody who did not get to bid this come back and sue us? Does it open us up to more money down the line? And no one here has talked about suing anybody or going to court or anything, except now the clerk has, yesterday in her response. So now where do we stand? We kind of stand at a crossroads here, that it sounds like the clerk wants to go to court and adjudicate this against the county, where every county department, every other 8 countywide elected officials all work together as a team, except one. And again, it's not like we haven't been here before, because we have been here over the last 4 or 5 years. And again, if that's what's gonna take, that's my question as a state's attorney. Who are they getting advice from? Why aren't they listening to our state's attorney? And where do we go from here? Because now it's public. And again, I didn't know anything about it until we got the auditor's emails back and forth. We don't know. And then it tends to make me think, if they're not doing this, what else are they doing in the office? What else do we have to be concerned about? That's for down the road. But right now, what do we do in the bidding process? How do we get them to follow state law and county code and make sure the county is being responsible with taxpayers' dollars? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Member Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to address a few things coming from the financial side of things because that's my expertise. First of all, the clerk's letter in response to that we received yesterday around 3:30, and when we asked the clerk to be here at our meeting today, and she said, "I am not an employee of the county board." First of all, that's incorrect. The clerk is an employee of this county. She gets a W-2. The county board determines her salary. She is someone who is elected, of course, by the people, but has to act in accordance with the other elected officials employed by the county. So she is an employee of the county by the IRS, by the Illinois Department of Revenue, by every standard. She and her office she represents must follow the same rules as all other departments. Second, our auditor and state's attorney, the sole legal authority, have determined by fact, I don't see any discussion here, it is fact that she is non-compliance with the laws and regulations. That is what our state's attorney has determined. Second, I had a number of discussions this past week with our outside auditor, because how does this affect our financial statements? How does this affect what goes out to the public? How does this affect our bond rating? So I spoke with the head person at Baker & Tilly assigned to our audit. And basically, I understood that if it is a material non-compliance with laws and regulations, now he has to determine that materiality. What does he base it on? More testing. What else is going on in that office? So if he determines it's a material non-compliance with laws and regulations, it would be disclosed. That would have to be disclosed. There is a report that the auditors issue. They issue reports on different funds, like the general fund, the ARPA funds. They also issue a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance, including laws and regulations and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. So this is one of the reports that our auditors issues alongside our financial statements. And if he determines that it's a material non-compliance, that would be disclosed. Last, I talked about with the auditor trust, because when you perform an audit, you have to rely, based on your testing, that the things are being done correctly in that department. And when our inside auditor brought to our attention that things are not compliant with laws and regulations, we look at what other risk is there, what other exposure is there to the county for things that are happening in that department. For instance, grant monies, that's a big one. Grant monies come into that department. Grant monies from the state of Illinois and federal grants have to have specific compliance with those grant monies. And if you don't follow those, the grant monies are threatened, number one. And number two, it goes over into the other departments because the clerk's department is in the general fund. So these are grants in the general fund. They don't comply with what laws and regulations regarding those grant monies. That threatens everything. So this is very serious matter, and I feel like it is something that may affect, going down the road, our financial statements.
Member Krajewski and then Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And at least the first one you covered, I was going to say this wasn't about elections. This is about just following the state rules that every department and every elected official has to file. So it doesn't matter what their what the issue is. This just happened to be the auditor pointed out election vendor stuff for elections. But again, I know our state's attorney is this attorney for us and for the clerk, and they've given, and I think Bob Berlin's email mentioned maybe a year ago, they've been giving them constant legal opinions from their attorney that they have to file the state procurement laws. And there's a reason that the state put that in, is to make sure that you have competitive bidding process, you're transparent, and you're getting a low cost for the taxpayers. Our auditor rightfully pointed out that that's not happening. And I think, Chairwoman, you mentioned in your comments open disregard for the rules. Clearly, she's been disregarding the state's attorney. She's willfully disregarding these rules. And, again, I don't think there's a conflicting legal opinion. We got one legal opinion. Some of the other stuff I saw come from the clerk relates to how she runs her office, which again, we're not telling her how to run her office. We're giving her a budget. She can, spend it on what she wants to spend it on, but she does have to follow the state law, and she's disregarding that. Again, there's not a lot of options we have, but, I would suggest that our state's attorneys move for official misconduct of an elected official. It requires willfulness, and it appears that she continues to disregard the rules of the state and just sending stuff out without bids. And I know it does open us up, as was pointed out earlier today and today, just a few minutes ago, regarding vendors who didn't get a chance to process that, so to bid on that. But I would suggest, we look for consensus to ask our state's attorneys to go forward with official misconduct. And last, I would like staff to at least go forward and try to talk to our state's attorneys, the auditor, and our finance department, and just find out, ballpark, the amount of time that the offices, the departments have spent over the last year trying to get the clerk to follow the rules. In my conversations a few minutes ago with the auditor, earlier with the state's attorney, there's just an inordinate amount of time that they are spending on trying to get the clerk to follow the rules. And I would like, as a board, to know, what are we talking about? Are we talking about 1,000 man-hours over the last year from the state's attorney? Or women hours, men hours, excuse me, just the amount of time, which we track our time. We have allocations where we allocate overhead costs from facilities, finance to various departments. But just to get a rough idea, so we have an understanding as a board of the magnitude of the amount of time that staff is spending to try to get the clerk to follow the rules. And, we need to budget accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, first of all, just regarding who reports to the county board, none of the elected officials actually report to the county board because, we've asked the sheriff to come in and, he doesn't come into JPS because he doesn't have to, because he doesn't report to us. So I just want to make that clear, that they don't, we've asked the sheriff to come into and he has not come into meetings. But disagreements among government officials, especially interpreting laws or statutes, is not uncommon. For example, we just had, 65 state's attorneys file a lawsuit, remember, against the Safety Act, right? And it went to court, and it was decided in court whether that part of the Safety Act was legal or not. So sometimes these disagreements are settled in court. But, I think we're talking, so I think this is probably going to be settled there, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not making a decision one way or another whether they're following state statute or not. I don't know. But what I do know is what we've done on this board in the past. And I'd like to know when the last time the procurement process was audited. And the reason I'm asking this is because last year I was made aware of over 200 past due invoices in the Department of Transportation. Now, this was told to me passing in a hallway by somebody that thought it was important that I knew this was going on. The reason I'm bringing it up, and we talked about this, and everybody was like, Member Chaplin, those invoices are being taken care of, so there's nothing to worry about. They're working on getting them paid. And I appreciate all the work that Bill Edison has done, because he kind of walked into this with, and I know Gerald, we took an employee from finance, put him down in DOT to help figure out those invoices. But when I reread an email that was sent to staff from Bill Edison about the invoices, they had 18 that were still outstanding. Of those 18, 9 were still in dispute. And the reason that they were in dispute was because something in the contract falls significantly outside the terms of the underlying agreement. So something in the contract, something that they had billed, falls significantly outside the terms of the underlying agreement. So to me, that could mean that there may be something going on in our procurement that we're not getting these bids in right, because that's a lot of invoices. I mean, to have these
Okay,
things.
Member Chaplin, we're going to let
Okay.
Nick address this. And,
Yeah.
and I would say, what you're saying, first of all, when you're talking about all different states' attorneys around the state, about a state law,
Right.
everybody weighs in. We're a
Right.
county, and we
Right.
have a state's attorney that
Right.
governs our county. The other thing I would say is you need to be very careful when you're talking about the transportation situation, because they are going through the procurement process. If they have questions about procurement, that's a separate issue.
Right, but I'm asking if we've audited procurement lately, because I think there was an audit done like in the 2003.
I would say that's something we can consider going forward.
Yes,
And I would also say, I just need to say to all of you, I'm very disturbed about the idea of going to court, because we are the stewards of taxpayer dollars. What that will cost and how that is actually done, I will have explained to you by the state's attorney. I don't think some of you may understand that process. I had to ask, when I found out what that process looks like and the astronomical amount of money it will cost, I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah,
So let's let Nick answer your question.
Thank you, thank you.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
No.
The item on
I
the
know, but
agenda
I'm
is county clerk procurement process.
Correct,
Has nothing to do with
correct.
transportation.
Correct.
Nothing to do with the rest of the county. So it's
Right.
not germane
We're
to the
not talking
conversation
about,
above.
correct, we're not talking about apples and oranges, we're talking about an apple. So let's proceed.
I can make it very quick. The transportation invoices that we're talking about, there was a question about how come some aren't being paid. There's no problem with our procurement. There's a problem with the vendor submitting, maybe they didn't submit the proper paperwork, they didn't submit, waivers from their subs. We're waiting on items from them. Every single invoice in that list has been processed, that could be processed. If we're waiting on something from an outside vendor, that maybe they're tied up. But in my opinion, the problems were noted by DOT. They solved the situation immediately once the situation arose, and they followed it and moved forward. So it is, in my opinion, apples and oranges, but I will tell you that DOT, once they were made aware of the situation, rectified it immediately to the point of, I think there was a termination involved, and I mean, anything left right now is not in DOT's hands. They're waiting for a third party, and it has nothing to do with procurement.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Nick, and I appreciate that. Right, but I do think, as you know, a board, though, that we should have an audit of those so we know what was wrong with those invoices and what steps were fixed to cure them and whatever. But also, going back to the state's attorney, when I was on the Water Commission, I asked for some, and I'm going to just bring this up because I think it is relevant. I asked for some documentation. The legal counsel at the Water Commission said that they would not, they weren't going to give it to me, that that was out of the scope and I couldn't get the information. So I truly believe that I needed that information to do my job. I went and I wrote a letter to the PAC office in Springfield. The PAC, that was the, what was it back then? The personal, I can't remember what it was, but it was the PAC office with the state's attorney's office. And they immediately called the Water Commission and said they had 48 hours to turn over that documentation to me. So sometimes what I'm saying is sometimes we do have to challenge and push a little bit because maybe I'm not saying that they're giving wrong advice or right advice, but sometimes people do have those disagreements. Also, this county board in 2019, we approved $1.35 million in insurance services that were no bid. Since then, we've been putting that out for bid, but in 2019, we did do that. So sometimes things are missed. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, Member Chaplin, that's a professional service, and
No,
I
but
would say there was an issue and it was corrected. So if we could correct this, we would not have to have this conversation.
But at the time, there was a 2012 Attorney General opinion out there that said insurance services do not fall under professional services. So, but we missed it, but I'm just saying, so sometimes things happen. And there was never any reporting of that we did it wrong. There was never any, nothing out there. So I'm just saying, I think if we're going to do the clerk, that we need to be fair in our reporting, and I think we need to know about the status of other late invoices in the county and
This
what's
isn't
being done
about
to do
late
those.
invoices, this is about procurement. There's a difference. There's a big difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a lot of people that want to talk, guys. So Member Evans was next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to say that I've seen or heard three diversionary tactics now. Number one was that DUDOT, let's not throw DUDOT under the bus. They have been correcting their procurement process, and they're doing the right thing. DuPage Water Commission, how is that in this conversation? The other diversionary tactic was the email that we received from the clerk's office with a legal opinion from something that was not at all proving that she is exempt from following state procedures to follow the procurement process. So at what point are we going to talk about following the procurement process? It just seems so simple, just follow the rules. If we have to follow them, everyone else has to follow them. You know, it just stands to prove, I don't understand. This is so confusing to me why someone won't follow the rules. So it's been frustrating for me, and to listen to this conversation, I don't want to hear any more diversionary tactics. We really should just be talking about how we can get compliance. It doesn't need to be an attack on the clerk's office. It really should be a matter of how do we get this fixed. So that's really another thing that some of us, talk about is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you're going to just give someone a contract, who else wanted that contract? How do we know if it's a good deal? We talk about all these minority, Mimi-Weebies that really would love to do business with the county. And, if they don't have an open bidding process, how are they ever going to get work from the county? So those are my 2 cents. I also think that we do have some liability here. If we're going to be subject to a lawsuit because, someone won't follow the rules, then this is a valid discussion for county board.
Okay, Member Guston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Member Evans. That was the first thing that came to my mind. If we don't have a proper procurement process and we're not following it, we are actually doing damage to those businesses that are women-owned businesses, that are minority-owned businesses, and we strive so hard to make sure that everybody's included, everybody has an opportunity to do business with this county. And if we're not following the procurement process properly and it's being brought up by the auditor, it needs to stop. I'm not sure in what direction or how we're going to be able to fix it, but it needs to be fixed. We are going to lose the trust of our public and those businesses that want to do business here, and then just individuals within our own communities. It'll cost money if we have to have a lawsuit and we have to go through the court system. That would be totally insane. But you would think that county elected officials can get along for the betterment of their community, for the betterment of the whole county as one. And this isn't happening at the clerk's office. This is a pattern of conduct. We've had another issue with the clerk's office. This is procurement. This is black and white, very simple. You didn't follow the way in which it was supposed to be done. Now, how do we fix it? And I'm hopeful that the state's attorney can give us some guidance on that and what that might look like. My concern is our reputation as a county and our AAA bond rating, and what money do we need to put away in a tort account just in case something blows up. But this is not the way that the professionals should be conducting themselves. And I hope that there's going to be a conversation had by the parties that can make these changes. That would be the clerk's office, the state's attorney, the chairwoman, so that we can make sure that she complies or that the department complies with the procurement process that's necessary to do business here in the county. I really, really want to know how we're going to fix this. And that's my one big question, because if we have somebody who's not going to comply now, how do we make them comply in the future? Thank you.
Member Guston, I can tell you from firsthand experience, we've had conversations ad nauseum.
Nothing's happening.
We're definitely at a standstill. We're definitely at a standstill. I have Member Galassi and then Member LaPlante.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to reiterate a few things that other members have said. First, our state's attorney has opined on this, and in my opinion, that is who we should be listening to. He is our state's attorney elected, and we need to follow his guidance. Secondly, we've been here before. This is a pattern of defiance from this department, and no other elected officials department has been defiant, at least not since I've been on this board. Thirdly, you know, as somebody who campaigned on fiscal responsibility, there are two things at risk here. One, that we are not getting the low-cost bid that we could be. Number two, that we are being exposed for a lawsuit that we just discussed, tort issues earlier in this meeting, which seems like a long time ago. Finally, well, a few other things. I do agree that as from a DEI perspective, we are trying to give minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses a chance to bid on our contracts, and this was not done in this situation, so that is also going against our strategic plan. Additionally, what Member Krajewski brought up, time spent by an already overworked, we learned from the pretrial conversation that these departments are already overworked and understaffed, and now this department is putting more pressure on them to opine on these issues that shouldn't be a problem. We are simply asking to follow state law, follow the rules, and be a good team player, and it's not happening. And like I mentioned earlier, it is a pattern of defiance from this department. So I am very curious to hear what our options are from our state's attorney. Thank you.
Okay, Member LaPlante and then Member Ozog.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. I too would like to bring up the pattern of behavior that's been going on since I've been elected in 2020. Every issue that we seem to have that causes a discussion like this, it comes from one source and one source only. So this type of a pattern of behavior needs to be looked at. What can we do? And that's what we're all hoping to find out. What can we do to disrupt this negative pattern of behavior? Transparency and accountability are the cornerstones of good governance, and very sadly, we are not seeing that right now coming from the clerk's department. That means that we are failing if we don't put a stop to this. We owe it to the people of DuPage County. When I also want to make a really strong point that that letter was signed by 10 members of this board, which makes it the majority. It was a bipartisan effort because this issue is nonpartisan in nature. It is about the rule of law. That has nothing to do with whatever letter is after someone's name. And to emphasize Member Zay's point, the person who brought this forward was our auditor, Bill White. So this is not a witch hunt. This is not an attack. This is people who are trying to do the best work as elected officials for the people of DuPage County. And we're coming together to say we have a problem and it needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved now. For some of my colleagues who are saying things like, I'm going to stay out of it, or I'm just going to, this is our job. This is a fiscal board. We were elected to ensure fiscal responsibility and fiscal oversight of the county. There is no such thing as staying out of it. To stay out of it means you're saying, I'm not going to do my job that I was elected to do. I take this job very seriously. I take the oath of office when I was inaugurated very seriously. This is what we're supposed to be doing. I agree the diversionary tactics are damaging, and they cause a very detrimental, excuse me, I am talking, a very detrimental ripple effect that can be felt throughout this board, throughout the caucuses, and it makes our job exponentially harder. I know it's extremely difficult on the staff, and when you think and talk about the amount of time, energy, and resources that are spent on this one position, on this one elected official, on this one office, we need to do better. Thank you.
Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, and I want to thank you, we approved over $11.3 million in transportation funds for our road projects. And of course, it said lowest responsible bidder. So in terms of what is expected of transportation, can you imagine what went into preparing a bid like that? So I would ask the clerk to consider why, $100,000, et cetera, why we could not do it, because obviously the feelings of this board are that we should do it the correct way, which is the lowest responsible bidder. So what I would ask is I would like to see if we could postpone our discussion, or not postpone the discussion, but Member Krajewski asked the state's attorney to file an official misconduct of elected officials. I would like to wait 2 weeks before we do that, considering today is our first discussion at the board level about this. and see if 2 more weeks may, hearing today's response, the clerk is not here, but hearing the comments of the board, et cetera, and put things out for bid. It's not a huge ask, and, arguments aside, I just think that obviously that's what our other departments do, our other elected officials do. So I would like to see if we could consider if we're going to do something like that, I'd like to consider waiting.
I would agree with you, Member Ozog, and I think also once we hear what it will take, what it will cost to actually go into a court proceeding, I think that may start to move things a little bit. I'm hopeful. Who am I at? I'm at Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate the comments you made at the beginning of this discussion. I'm 100% in agreement of your comments, especially talking about transparency, working together, and so forth. And I'm also appreciative of your positive comments of the clerk's office for our election process. I mean, especially in this day and age, making sure we have free, open, and secure elections is so vitally important. Is it possible, and maybe we're doing it, but is it possible to dumb this down? I mean, is the clerk's office doing something illegal that is so black and white that we can tell that this is illegal? And I'm only asking, I mean, I'm hearing people say yes, but, and I would ask the state, because I'm getting emails from the clerk's office, I'm also, seeing emails from the state's attorney. Is this black and white? Because that makes this whole discussion so much easier if it's black and white. And if it is black and white, that says that the clerk's office has to do things differently than they're doing, how would this all play out if say there was a lawsuit brought up by a vendor or something like that? So is it possible?
I'm not, so you want to, I'm not quite sure what your exact
My
question
is it black and white that the clerk's office is doing something illegal?
That they're not going through their procurement process, yes, I believe it is. I do believe it is.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, hang on, let me look at my list. Member Eckhoff, then Member Yu, then Member Childress.
I guess I would say that the memos that we've gotten from the state's attorney's office make it clear that he believes it's black and white, and we should be following our state's attorney's advice. But I thought we got past this last year, and I thought we were all moving forward, and I was surprised when we started getting these notes a couple of weeks ago that not only were we having another problem, but that the problem's been ongoing for a long period of time, and taking our chairwoman's time, our state's attorney's time, our staff time, and it's really outside the scope of what we should have to be doing, because everybody should be following the rules, and they're not. And now we've wasted a tremendous amount of time from everyone trying to deal with this problem. And at some point, and I think we said this last year when I asked the question, at some point you got to say enough is enough, and we got to do something about it. And I know that it's real expensive to go to court, and I know it takes a lot of time, but it takes less time if you start today instead of tomorrow. And I think that if we're going to consider court time, it needs to be both. I think that there was a criminal misdemeanor statute that applied, and I think there needs to be a look at whether or not there's personal liability for the people who are procuring these items outside their scope of their authority as a countywide official. Because if I went out and ordered a bunch of pens or something for the sheriff's office, I think the sheriff would, and everybody would be asking, well, how did you get that authority? And you're going to have to pay for those yourself. And if there's people out there ordering envelopes and doing things that they shouldn't be doing outside their authority, then I think we need to do a hard look and see whether or not that they should be personally liable to pay for those bills. Which brings up the next question: if we need to go out and bid these items, should have been bid out, can we start bidding them out now outside the scope of the clerk's office so that they are properly bid, so we can get them in time for the next election? And if that can be done, then I think we need to start doing that now. I would be interested, as Mr. Zay said, to know where the clerk believes they're getting their opinion from. I don't think the clerk's got a license. I'm not sure anybody else in that office has got a license, and I hope that they're not practicing law without a license, because there's a violation of that in the statute too that they can be held accountable for. So it's time to get this over with. It's time to have our state's attorney having to waste his time doing this and letting him go out and work on prosecuting criminals and the people in the civil division and hopefully getting another modification of the Safety Act. Let's get on with what we're supposed to be doing and stop doing what we shouldn't be doing.
Okay, so we have several more people that have questions, but we've had the same question come up several times, so I'm going to ask Adam. Adam, can you tell us who and where you're getting your legal opinion that differs with everyone else's?
So I'm just here to take the minutes of the meeting.
Well, that's not helpful. Okay, member you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Pardon, go ahead.
Yes, so I think I just want to take a step back in the sense that we have been getting a lot of communications, and I've actually read the 1996 opinion of Attorney General Ryan, and I've read the 2017 opinion of Attorney General Lisa Madigan, and I read through State's Attorney Bob Berlin's memo as well. And so with regard to the statute, there are two statutes in question, and when there is some difference of opinion with regard to statutory interpretation, then attorneys have to turn to case law. And unfortunately, there isn't a lot of case law on this. State's Attorney Berlin, mentioned the Tazewell case as well as the Puczynski case, and after reviewing both cases, in my very, very humble opinion, they're distinguishable from the facts and the circumstances in this situation. But specifically, the statute that is in question for the county clerk, it states, the county clerk shall have the right to control the internal operations of the clerk's office and to procure necessary equipment, materials, and services to perform the duties. And then the other applicable statute states any purchase by a county with fewer than 2 million inhabitants of services, materials, equipment, or supplies in excess of $30,000 shall be contracted by in the following ways, which is lowest responsible bidder. So I think Member Schwarzy had mentioned, is there a black and white interpretation? And I don't know that there is, otherwise this wouldn't be such a big discussion and a problem. I don't think it's a matter of fact. I think there is some matter or question of law. I think the question is whether any purchase by a county, quote unquote, includes the purchases of a county clerk. And according to our DuPage County Code of Ordinance, I think there was another member that mentioned that the clerk is a county employee. However, in our Code of Ordinances, it specifically defines that a county agency is defined as a county officer, employee, department, office of, or agency whose purchasing authority is subject to the DuPage County Board. On the other hand, it also defines an elected official, which is separate from a county agency. And the elected official, for purposes of this article, includes the county clerk. So all I'm saying is we are not going to be the trier of fact or law here. I do think that considering we have turned to attorney generals before for opinions, that perhaps we should also look to an opinion from the attorney general as well, because I think that is something that we've done in the past. I think that is my suggestion.
Member Childress.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a couple questions. In my mind, we've discussed something called official misconduct, and we were asked to have a consensus on that. I'm not an attorney. Is there a statute or someplace that I can go and review what constitutes official misconduct?
So what I would say about that, Member Childress, is that was suggested by a member. That is not on the table currently. We would have to have some legal guidance on something like that. So that's not what we're going to be discussing today.
Thank you. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would like to ask the state's attorney to, I have to say I was very taken back by the clerk's saying, take me to court. That really, really bothered me. She also immediately sent it to the press, which also really bothered me. I think the press saw it before I saw it. So I'd like to ask State's Attorney Bob Berlin to explain to the board what I asked you earlier. What does the process look like if we go to court and get a legal? Because again, Kwame Raoul, I love Kwame, he's a great person. It would be, we can get an opinion from him, but regardless of what that opinion is, our clerk isn't going to follow it. Why would she follow that any more than what they're saying now? That would be my concern. I'm sorry, Member Tonatori, you had something. Okay. So Bob, if you could explain to us, since the clerk has said she wants us to take her to court, can you please explain to me exactly what that process looks like and the cost, not only to the county, but also to some individuals?
So first of all, let me Let me address the idea of an Attorney General opinion. It's something we can ask for on this specific issue. They usually take 6 months to a year, sometimes longer. But Attorney General opinions are not binding. They're persuasive authority that don't have to be followed. That's just something to consider. It doesn't force someone to follow whatever the Attorney General says. The idea of going to court, there's the possibility of doing some type of a civil action, which would then require the appointment of a special state's attorney to represent the clerk. By law, the state's attorney represents all elected county officials, including the county board chair. If we have to go to court representing the county board in an action against the clerk, we can't represent both. It's a clear conflict. So we would have to go to the chief judge with a motion to appoint a special state's attorney. Same thing if we were to pursue an official misconduct investigation. An official misconduct is a criminal charge. It's a felony charge. We would have a conflict even investigating it. So the way the law works is if there is a conflict, the chief judge of the county first has to check with the Attorney General and the state appellate prosecutor if they're willing to take the case. If not, they have to ask the surrounding counties if any of the state's attorneys are willing to take the case. I have gotten these letters before when there have been requests for special state's attorneys in surrounding counties, and I can tell you in a matter like this, no surrounding county state's attorney would want to get involved with something like this because it would be an immense amount of time and money and personnel that would have to be devoted to it, none of whom have that capability. I don't believe the Attorney General or the state appellate prosecutor would have the desire to get involved in something like this. So it would require the appointment of a special state's attorney from outside who gets paid by the county. And it would be an immense cost because we're paying by the hour. There's a potential court hearing. There are potential appeals to the appellate court, ultimately, potentially to the Illinois Supreme Court. All of that takes time. All of it takes money, and never mind the optics to the county, because we've seen it play out in other counties.
So, and Bob, can I ask you, because you represent myself, our board, and the folks that are elected and so forth in DuPage County, who would represent the clerk?
There would have to be a private attorney appointed.
And who would pay for that?
The county. The county would have to pay. The state's attorney would have to either take a side, either represent the board or represent the clerk. In other counties where a similar issue has come up, the state's attorney has gone in and requested special state's attorneys for both sides. So then it's double the cost. Depending on what the exact nature of the litigation is, that's a decision that we would have to make, but certainly at least one side would have an appointed special state's attorney.
Okay, and what kind of potential jeopardy or issues does our auditor and our treasurer and even our finance committee have in terms of, obviously, we're not going to not pay these bills. I can tell you all that right now. We're going to pay these bills. But because they're not being procured, and when we have the auditor come to us and say, I can't pay this because it has not been procured, and then we go through all of this, and eventually, obviously, we end up having to pay them. Can you address that?
It basically puts us in a position that vendors who are not able to bid on these various contracts could sue the county for liability. So that's what, I don't know specifically who would, but there's that risk with these types of contracts.
Okay. Member Guston.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess my one question is, I know the dollar figure is substantial. Can you share approximately 100,000, 200,000? I mean, what number are you looking at with respect to a special prosecutor? And I'm not going to hold you to it. I kind of just want an idea of what number we're talking about.
Yeah, it really, I guess it depends on who this special state's attorney is, how much litigation is involved. I think a ballpark estimate is you're looking at least 100 to 200,000 and maybe more.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Member Covert, Member Covert? Did you have?
Yes,
think
I
missed
had a
you.
question. So looking at, just litigation related, would this open up to a civil lawsuit later down the road for going forward with the misconduct? I mean, this seems like a mess. And
I can tell you it is a mess.
right, but what I'm hearing from everybody is that I don't have the full information in front of me, so I can't definitively say anything, but I've seen the past, and to be fair, the election equipment and all the procurement, the procurement process with the election equipment, that went fine, and there was no issue. Everybody was eventually.
There was no procurement of the election equipment.
Okay, so there was no. Okay.
That's what this is all about. Simply about the procurement.
So we're talking about okay. Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to think if there was any misinterpretation. We've been going back and forth with this, and instead of going forward with an official misconduct or, maybe tone down the temperature a bit, just like I agree with Member Ozog, maybe look at it for another 2 weeks and see and talk
I think we
to the
agreed to do
office.
that, yeah.
Right.
We've
And
agreed to
see
do
what's actually going on instead of escalating it right now.
Okay, Member Galassi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess for State's Attorney Berlin, can you just lay out what our options are? Because I feel like we've been here before, like last summer when we were dealing with the issues with the clerk's office. What are our options?
Well, I mean, I can tell you this, in regards to these invoices, the board doesn't have the legal authority to deny them or approve them. The clerk is an elected county official and does have internal control over the operation of their office. So the options, I think, are what we talked about, would have to come from our office. And that is an AG opinion. It's a potential civil action to declare the rights of the parties. Neither of those would actually force the clerk to actually follow whatever that opinion is. The other option is the appointment of a special state's attorney to investigate. If there's any potential violation of the law that would rise to the level of official misconduct. Those are the options that we would have. The board is limited in its options just by operation of law.
Okay, Member Totatori.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm terribly saddened and disturbed, and I feel badly for you because you've tried to do so many things in a bipartisan manner, and I'm seeing some of that raise its ugly head again here. This isn't the first time we've dealt with this. We just went through it with the budget when the clerk didn't do things the way, or the clerk's office didn't do things the way it was supposed to be. And I appreciate the loyalty of some members to the clerk. I hope that if I ever do, not that if I ever do, when I do something wrong, that Liz is going to come to my defense the same way, because she's not a lawyer, but she set up a hell of a smoke screen earlier this morning. You know, we have the legal opinion. I didn't before, and I don't now subscribe to an official misconduct issue, because to me it just smacks of a problem. But to me, the perplexing question is the why. Why doesn't the clerk do what apparently everybody else thinks they should do? And that gives me some pause. For a lot of people, this is inside baseball. They could care less whether the clerk goes through a procurement process. But when it gets in the paper and when it becomes into the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, it ceases to go there. I think I'm going to have to disagree with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Berlin, on the cost of what this might cost if we get there, because as I see this, in my world, in the legal world, when a lawyer or a litigant doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you go before a judge and you say, Judge, we'd like what's called a rule to show cause why you shouldn't be held in contempt for not following the rules. Now, the clerk, we can't hold her in contempt, nor do we want to. But I do believe that, and I haven't used this since law school, a mandamus action, which is an action that forces an elected official to do what they're supposed to do. It's a pretty narrow issue. Go before a judge and you say, Judge, this is what we think she should do. Should she do it, or should it do it, or should it not? And then we know. And it's not an opinion. It's a determination by a judge. And if at some point one of the parties wants to appeal it, then we deal with that. I don't think that, quite frankly, any amount of money should be a barrier to us solving this problem. We have to solve this problem, or we're going to continue with it here and with whatever other elected official decides to believe that they're an independent fiefdom that can do whatever they want to do. So whatever that cost might be, I think we have to eat it, because that's what we're elected to do, is to fix these things and to do these things the right way, regardless of partisanship. I like the clerk. She's done a great job with the elections. But when you don't do what you're supposed to do, and you don't follow the lawyer that is telling you what you're supposed to do, then it gives me cause for concern. So I don't want to kick this down the road. I don't even want to kick this for 2 weeks. I'm not suggesting we can't do anything today. This is new business. So we're not going to take any official action. But I certainly think that we need to come to a decision, or at least a consensus, or have an opportunity to talk about what legal action we need to take to get the clerk to comply with what we believe the rule to be. And we'll let the chips fall where they may. And if it costs us money, it costs us money. We got over a $500 million budget, quite frankly, and this is important, and it needs to be addressed. And if it's $200,000, and I hope it wouldn't cost that much, but whatever it is, it is. But that's my take on it. I think we need to make a decision and move on, because otherwise we're going nowhere quickly.
Well, I think we don't have anybody here willing to speak for the clerk's office. So I think the question should be, is this what the clerk wants in order to do what we feel everybody is saying she needs to do? Do we have to go to this extreme to do it? Because this is taken away from the good work that she's doing, and I think, we need an answer. And no opinion, even Kwame's opinion, is going to persuade them to do what we're asking them to do. So I think the question needs to be out there, and we can only wait for the answer. If that is the path that the clerk chooses, because they feel that strongly that they are right and we are all wrong, then we will do that. There's a few, member you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate Member Tornatore's opinion just now, just because in the Puchinsky's case, a written of mandamus was filed, and that's how the legal question got resolved. I just want to also mention the fact that I talked with some of the assistant state's attorneys earlier, and they would like to see more specific language in the statute itself. And so if the statute has to be amended in order for it to really show the state's legislative intent about procurement and how counties should be going about doing that, including elected officials, then that should be done in Springfield. We should be pushing for that maybe. That is one of the ways that we could fix this issue. That's probably a long way down the line. In the short term, the writ of mandamus is something to do.
Okay, Member Desart.
Thank you. I want to say that since these 18 people have been on this board, this specific board, I've never seen so much respect and divisiveness than today. I just want to say that down here when Member Chappell was speaking, I heard somebody say, can we move on? And then I heard somebody else say diversion. And, let's just respect each other and make our comments professional and non-divisive. One thing I will say that a couple of people have said, why is she doing this? Why is this happening? And the why could be clarified without going to the media. The why could be clarified with a conversation with the clerk. And I know for a fact that those who signed the letter, none of them called the clerk, spoke with the clerk, said why. And I can tell you that for a fact, that none of them called the clerk, because I did. I spoke with the clerk over the summer, and I asked her why. And one of the things she told me was that, number one, some of these contractors we've been working with for over 4 years. So why is this becoming a big issue now? And secondly, why these vendors? And what she said to me was interesting too. I don't mean to glom onto the transportation, but if you're fixing a road and your vendor doesn't do a good job, you can have somebody else come in, redo the road, make it perfect. But when we're talking about election division things, our election is what, November 7th, 6 months away. You can't have a vendor say, oops, we're not going to be there till the 9th of November. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. And you can't have the vendor not show up or do it wrong. It needs to be perfect. So those are the two thoughts that I had. There are answers to her why, whether you agree with them or not. And secondly, please be more respectful. Thank you.
So, Member Desart, I would say that in terms of her why, we know and have had many meetings. I have spoken to her a lot. They disagree with everybody else. In terms of the procurement piece of it, what you're talking about, they have, yes, an elections group they work with that they love. That's fantastic. Now, they put it out for procurement, and perhaps this company that they use is a little bit more expensive. The clerk is our expert. She simply comes to us and says, this is a company that we have worked with. They have a proven work history with us. We feel 100% confident with them, and that is why we're going with the higher bid. That's it. It's just a matter of being fair. It's a matter of being transparent with the taxpayers and making sure everybody has that opportunity. I 100% am with you on making sure that, our elections have run beautifully, and we want to continue that. That's not what this is about at all. And so we have other departments do that all the time. Yes, this is a higher bid, but this is why we went with them. That's part of the process.
If I could just add real quick, I know we talked about a 16% approval this morning on one of our contracts, but what we're talking about here with the clerk's office is 0.004% of our budget. Just wanted to point that out.
Member Ozog.
As of right now, and I don't know who can tell me this, does the clerk's office have permission to pay these bills that we are discussing today?
I have asked.
Is there authorization?
Yes, I said these bills have to be paid. We have a AAA bond rating in DuPage County.
So the bills will be paid?
Most important thing to me is that they will be paid. Yes, they will be paid.
Okay. The other question I'm wrestling with is if there is a specific reason to use a vendor, especially with elections, it would seem to me that that would come under the blanket heading of sole source and professional services, all sorts of other, there's many ways to get to where you want to go.
Yes, and sole source can be listed, but you can't have never procured it. So you can't,
Correct.
you procure it, and that's what you like, and then you go back and you say, you know what, we're gonna sole source this because we have a history with these people.
Yes, and there's various ways to look at things, which I believe we might have done when we bought the voting machines in the first place. So there's obviously many ways to look at this, but as long as the bill gets paid, we do have an election to run in a few months. So thank you.
Okay, Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the board members, obviously, no one wants to be here, but once the auditor sends us a memo, it says these are not being bid, it's our responsibility, it's our duty to do that. It bothers me that it sounds like we're just gonna go ahead and pay these invoices, okay, they're wrong. I don't know if we all have the authority. I think ultimately it's the authority of the treasurer to pay these, if I'm not mistaken. So now we're gonna force the treasurer to also not uphold the law, which is fine, and these people need to be paid. But what happens, are we gonna have the same conversation in January next year, after the next election? And say, well, what are we gonna do? It's just a vicious circle that keeps going. And again, we have had this discussion with the clerk's office for years. This isn't something new. We had to step in when we bought the voting equipment. Our procurement had to go in. That saved us from being sued for millions of dollars because they weren't following the process. We followed the process and got the machines, and it was fine. But don't use the crutch as, well, we have an election coming in November, so let's okay a wrong and do it that way. I mean, let's figure out how to do this. I mean, it's disturbing to me that it just sounds like, well, we can't do anything. We're gonna continue to let them do whatever they want.
Okay.
And that's not, I mean, we're looking for solutions here. We've tried to talk to them, but again, I mean, how do we go apart? I mean, we're just okaying a wrong, and we're gonna do it again in 6 months? I mean, that's not a solution in my eyes.
Member Garcia.
Thank you, Chair Conroy. You know, I've been very quiet today because I'm not an attorney. And I have read every legal thing that's come my way. I have had my seatmate, thankfully, explain things to me because I am not an attorney. So I've been sitting here listening, trying to understand things along with Member Schwarzy. I think we're kind of in the same boat where we're trying to understand where both sides are coming from. I'm very thankful for Member Tornatore's comments. I think we're at a standstill where we don't know what we can do until we move forward with something being done about it. I'm very thankful. I want to ask a question for clarification of State's Attorney Bob Berlin. You said that we can't stop them from being paid either way, correct? Is that what you just said? They have to be paid?
The board doesn't have the legal authority.
Right, to stop the payment, correct?
To stop payment, approve payment.
Or approve payment.
Correct.
So the board doesn't. Who does have the approval to do that? Can the chair do that like she just said she's going to be approving it, so?
Well, the auditor makes a recommendation to pay or not to pay. Ultimately, it really is the Treasury and Finance Department. Yeah, Treasury cuts the check.
Yeah, and this started because the auditor said he can't pay them.
And then he can't reverse and said he didn't have the right. So that's where I'm very.
And then he went back again a
exactly,
third time
I'm
and
very
said,
confused about that. And so I've been kind of quiet just listening to the whole thing. My main thing is, as I'm going to start, as you started, I'm just going to finish this, if this is the end of it. I want to make sure that this does not nullify the hard work of the staff of the clerk's office, the clerk, the election division. They ran a fantastic primary election in March. I know that has nothing to do with procurement, but I just want to make sure that they are aware that we are aware that they did such a fantastic job. This is nothing against the staff. It is against decisions that are be made by the head of the department that perhaps are not in the correct vein, or we need to have some kind of come to Jesus moment or something. So that's all. Thank you.
Well said. Okay, I'm exhausted. Member Cahill.
One thing we have to remember, it's my understanding that these invoices that the auditor originally said that we should not pay, there's other ones behind that, guys. There's grant monies too. This is not just this issue. This is a continual issue going forward, and the grant money issue is significant because those grant monies cannot be accepted or used had we not followed the procurement process.
Okay. Member LaPlante.
Chair. Thank you, Chair Conroy. I would
I'm
like
sorry,
to.
did you want to?
Well, I think that Auditor White could address the
Oh, okay.
payments that have come both before
Oh,
and that
yeah,
are going to be
absolutely.
coming.
Sorry, Bill, I didn't realize you were here. Were you hiding back there?
She'd probably rather be, no, the issue is like, what other bills are out there that, this is just a small snapshot.
Yeah, there is.
Microphone.
Okay. Later this afternoon, we can send a spreadsheet of the outstanding bills. And the competitive bidding is only one issue that needs to be resolved. Many of them are issues, just technical issues that we can settle. But we can send a spreadsheet of what's outstanding. But my understanding of the payment process is we recommend or don't recommend. They're currently in our workflow. I'm going to turn this off. Hold on, it's supposed to go off. They're currently in our workflow. We will not advance them in the workflow until we get an opinion from the state's attorney that's appropriate, that they need to be paid. I was gratified to hear the chairman say the bills would be paid. A no-bid contract is still a contract. And the county has an obligation to pay a vendor, even if it's a no-bid contract. And the original memo was because I was not getting answers to my questions about the bidding. Once it was confirmed it was not bid, at that point, there's nothing to be gained by not making the poor vendors wait for their money. But the process for paying it, once we cross all the T's and dot all the I's, we can recommend it for payment. Then it will go on a pay list. The treasurer has some discretion, maybe not. That's kind of hit a question. Normally, the pay list would come back to the board. You're not meeting for a long time. If the chairwoman is willing to pull a check out of the pay list and authorize it to be dispersed, it'll be dispersed. Is that basically the process? I think that's the process. So if the consensus today is that these bills get paid, then we will press the button. It says approve, and that really shouldn't say that. It should be recommend for payment. It'll advance in the payroll process to allow it to go on a pay list, and then in the course of other checks, it'll be printed as a check, and the chair can go to treasury, can have the check brought to her office, and it can be delivered to the vendor. And my focus on this is paying the vendors. What happens in the future, that's in the purview of the state's attorney. That's an open question about whether there should be a service agreement. And that has, the third item on the memo from April 11th has not been addressed yet. So we won't release that for payment until that gets settled.
Okay, Member Krajewski.
The treasurer's ultimately one who has to cut the check. I mean, your opinion is this is not complying to state law. Is she committing any kind of infraction with the law by actually cutting the check?
Yeah, it's a contract. So if she's honoring the contract that's been performed by the vendor, I don't think that she would be exposing herself.
Wait, you said I don't think?
The treasurer.
Oh, the treasurer. I thought you were talking about me.
No, I'm talking about the treasurer.
Yeah, despite it not complying with the law.
No, because again, her job is different.
Sure.
Right. Her job, if it
as long as she doesn't have any.
Is to send the check out that's been approved, and there's a process, as the auditor explained, along the way.
Sure. Okay. But again, I mean, I think we wait 2 weeks, but we have to move forward. If the cost is $100,000, $200,000, I think we're going to be surprised when we find out from staff, your office, auditor's office, finance office, how much time your staff has spent over the last year just trying to get the clerk in compliant. I think we're going to be shocked at, and it's probably same 6-digit number that it's going to cost us if we do go to courts. I mean, and it's probably going to continue. When was I think was it a year ago in your memo that you first told the clerk about the compliance with the competitive bidding state statute? Okay,
I
so
think it's 2 years ago.
A year ago? 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Okay, so continually, again, and I think that goes to the chairwoman's opening remarks about openly disregarding the rules. Have you been provided from any attorney, a legal opinion contradicting you. I mean, the clerk keeps sending emails, but is there any attorney that's given an opinion? Or is this just the clerk sending you something with a bunch of cases or attorney general opinions?
So I think, to this point, I think it's important to state, from my opinion, that this opinion is coming from Adam. And it is the clerk who is elected to make these decisions. So that is what, through our meetings and through everything we've talked about, I have not seen anything from an attorney with a differing opinion.
Well, that's why I was asking the state's attorney. So there's been no attorney that the clerk's, you have not been, so you've just been getting the clerk, or Adam, I guess, the chairman, the clerk's just sending you, this is what she believes the legal authority is.
Correct.
Okay,
We've
so.
thoroughly researched the issue.
Member Galassi, were you finished? Oh, LaPlante. I'm sorry, I've lost track. Member LaPlante.
Thank you so much, Chair Conroy. I just want to sort of reference what was said where those of us who signed this letter should have reached out to the clerk individually. We are very well aware that you, as chair, have been having multitude of conversations, correct?
Yes.
So has our state's attorney, correct? Several conversations, right? With the multiple, right. So the point of signing that letter and asking the clerk to be here is to hold a public discussion with the whole body of the board. If I were to just have one conversation with the clerk, then it's a game of telephone that I have to go and tell my 17 other colleagues what was said. The point of doing this is to have an open and transparent discussion about public business of the board. So that's why this is necessary. This is why we asked, please come and address us. Please let us have this conversation, like we've asked in the past. I can't imagine another job, and I understand different rules apply to elected officials. We all understand that. But imagine for a second if you were asked to come in and speak to your colleagues or your bosses about a project you're working on and how you are procuring and spending the funds and saying, I decline. I wonder how long you would last in that position. This type of behavior wouldn't pass any type of a smell test in the private sector. So I'm not sure, I understand this is not the private sector, this is the public sector, but we do need to have some type of parameter where we're going to be able to get answers, to have people talk, to have a conversation, and to address this. Because right now, it's Groundhog's Day, over and over and over. We're having the same issues with the same people and the same discussions. And everyone that I'm hearing is saying, can we please solve this problem?
Okay, on that note, because this is Groundhog's Day, that's the end of the questions and comments. I think from here, we have two questions that we need answers from the clerk. One is, do you have a legal opinion? And if you do, who's that legal opinion from? Because it's my understanding this opinion is coming from Adam. Number two, is it your desire to go to court over this issue because you're not willing to, when everybody in the room says one thing and you say another? I come from a very big family. Lots of us in this room do. We often have one person who disagrees. What ends up happening? We go along. So that isn't happening here. So we need answer to both those questions. A, where's your legal opinion from? And B, if this is something that there is no point in going to Kwame, because Kwame can say whatever he wants to say and they're not going to agree with it. That's not, and we've had that before. So those are the two questions on the table right now. I am not willing to consider any kind of civil action at this point. That is certainly down the road. Let's give the clerk the opportunity to respond to these two questions, and then we'll move forward. Last question.
Thank you for allowing me this question. I just would like to know if it is coming from the deputy clerk, Adam Johnson. What is his background? Is he a practicing attorney, or has he ever been? Because I don't know that answer.
Well, yeah, that's a valid question. One we've all asked ourselves. Okay, we're going to move on. I don't think you want to answer that question, Adam? Okay, he says no. Okay, unfortunately, I am informed that we do have matters before us requiring us to enter into executive session. I'll ask those not associated with the executive session to please exit the room. And I will take a motion to go into executive session. Okay, all in favor?
I'm sorry, who was the motion for the executive session?
Paula, you made the
Were
motion to
you
go
the
into
motion,
executive
Member
session?
Garcia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.